EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, the #1 Eagles beat reporter in town. Johnny Mac, just 9 days away from the NFL draft as we inch closer. How you doing on this Tuesday morning, brother?
Doing well. Rick Saratella Day from
Yeah.
NFL Draft Bible. So we're going to get Rick back on, get him, get his sort of last thoughts as we inch closer to the NFL draft. And some interesting news developing around the league. Jalen Ramsey.
Yes, hold on.
Looking for, there's a guy Nick Sirianni loves. Boy, does he love him. And no, he's not coming here. For the morons in the chat who are getting in the wrong. But you can pretend. You can pretend all you like. Have at it. Go call up WIP.
Well, he doesn't. Well, Jalen Ramsey didn't enjoy his time with Vic Fangio, or at least that's what it was perceived by many people in Miami. I don't know if that's actually the truth. I don't think Vic or Jalen have ever specifically said that.
Well, I think he wanted to play. Yeah,
he wanted to play man. I mean,
he wanted to play a little bit more press coverage.
Yeah.
But he can do everything. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame player. He can do everything. But it costs too much money. And Howie's already said to do something like that. He was intimating about Myles Garrett, but it applies to TJ Watt, Jalen Ramsey as well. If you want to do something like that, you got to do something on the back end, which means cutting and moving on from players. And, anybody can take in, economics class. Anybody could try to learn about the salary cap as much, or you could sit there and pretend and live in fantasy land and get mad at Jeff Kerr and get mad at me. And then move on to the next thing.
Well, isn't that part of being? I mean, look, at the end of the day, John.
Come on.
No,
again,
it's part of being a fan, John. It is.
I try to elevate the conversation. There's plenty of places you can go to get your bullshit. That's my only point. If you want it, it's easy to find.
Well, I'm not saying we have to give it to them, but I'm just saying that fans are going to have, some fans are going to have that, thought process. Remember, this is our work. This is our life. This is our job, John. These people come here. This is their entertainment. This is their hobby, whatever the case may be. If they want to speculate TJ Watt in an Eagles jersey,
they can do whatever they want, but don't expect to be validated with your stupid shit.
Especially not here. That's where I agree with you. We're going to give you the truth here.
And you should love Zander because he defends you. But you're not getting validated here with your stupid shit. It's easy to get validated. Go there. They'll make you happy. That's my only point. I'm not gonna validate some idiot.
No, I'm not asking you to. I'm just explaining the other perspective on where I do understand the other perspective as well. But Jalen Ramsey is now going to be on the outs. No, he's not going to come to Philly. He didn't like Vic. They didn't get along. He wanted to play more press man, as you heard John say. So I don't anticipate anything happening there. But John, the update on the Eagles top 30 visit front is Malachi Starks. Elliott Shore-Parks reported that yesterday. I didn't see everybody pick it up, but I do trust Elliott. Malachi Starks is a name we've talked about a lot, a Georgia guy coming in. Obviously, I think the top safety in the draft over Nick Emmanwori. But your thoughts on Malachi Starks? Is this a realistic possibility, you think, for this team? I mean, John, they're looking at a lot of safeties, man. I mean, even at the Hula Bowl, they're meeting with Donovan McMullen. Like they're meeting with a lot of safeties. So they clearly have safety in mind. I just didn't believe it was going to come so early in the draft. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm not buying, again, it's you do your due diligence on and you try to, do as much homework on a player that's probably in the conversation for being there at 32. So regardless of the position, but I would still lean heavily towards defensive front, offensive line before safety. But again, we might be talking 2 years down the road and they bring in a player they did their homework on in the draft. They're going to add a safety, though. I mean, that's the one position. There's a couple positions. There's linebacker as well. And you see some of that coming out now. They meant the kid from Penn State, more of a day 3
Kobe
pick.
King, I think his name is. Yeah, Kobe King.
Yeah. So, because they need some depth there. And they need more. They want to bring in somebody to compete with Sidney Brown, whatever that looks like, whether it's a draft pick, whether it's Justin Simmons or somebody like that. After the compensatory pick stuff is off the table, which is after the draft, they're going to bring in somebody at safety. But as far as that first pick, wherever that first pick is, whether it's trade up 27, 28, whether it's 32, whether it's trade down 35, 40, I still think that's unlikely. But you want to do your homework on everybody who might be in that realm. And, just because there's the deepest part of this draft, at least at the top, is edge rusher. And just because there's 6 or 7 of them doesn't mean you're going to like 6 or 7 of them.
Exactly.
Now, just because the group thing is out there and say, well, just take the next edge rusher. Well, if you don't like the next edge rusher, you shouldn't take the next edge rusher. And then you maybe shift toward interior defensive line and a player you do like, or maybe you shift to offensive line and a player you do like, or maybe you shift to a safety and a player you do like if you like that player. That's why you do all the homework. But I think if you're playing the odds, it remains defensive front is the heavy favorite for that first pick. And then probably offensive line and then probably the outliers.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing there. But they have the top 30 visits are building up. But I understand your thought process there on the safety. I just had a hard time believing that the team would spend a first round. I mean, look at what they just did with Gardner Johnson. I know you're getting a more cost-effective deal with a first rounder, but it is a first rounder. Like, if you can get productive play out of an edge rusher there, let's just for the sake of the combo, versus Malachi Starks. Let's say you take Ezeraku or somebody like that at third or wherever in the first round, or you take Starks, and both of those players pan out. The Eagles are going to get obviously a ton more value out of the edge rusher position because of how much they make money-wise, and with the way their contract or their roster is built. Doesn't that make the most sense? Again, it has to work out. The players have to be there, but that's why I've been so hesitant on believing that they're going to draft a safety in the first round.
Well, yeah, that's because you're playing the odds. That's, it's very similar to what Tom Brady talks about playing quarterback position and play calling. What are you doing? You're playing the odds. That's it. That's it. Right. But if you like Ezeraku and he's not there, and you don't like Scourton, you did homework, and I'm not saying they don't, but if that's the case, you don't want to take him just because he's an edge rusher and just because everybody else thinks he's better. Jeffrey Lurie said something about, you can't worry about being popular. Can't worry about it. If you do that, because if you do something unconventional, you're going to get shit upon.
Right.
It happens all the time in the draft. If you dared say Jaden Daniels is better than Caleb Williams last year, you get shit upon. Where are those people 12 months later? Not that it's always going to work out.
Yeah, I know what you're saying though, but you can't use that as a premise for approach and philosophy.
Yeah. So if you have that cluster, the Eagles always have, I explained, a cluster of players. They have a cluster of players they want wherever they're going to pick at the end of the first round. They're going to have a group of about 5 players, could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. And they're going to want that particular player, one of that group. And if one of that group is not available, like, if you look at Stewart, the kid from Texas A&M, now he's one of those guys that has crazy, some people love him, some people dislike him. That's the whole thing of this draft. And we'll talk about that with Rick. But, there's such a dichotomy of views on particular players, or James Pierce or Walter Nolan, or players like this. maybe you don't like him if you're an NFL team. Obviously, there's going to be a bunch of NFL teams who pass on players like that.
Right.
Not everybody, because you might see a certain draft name that you like or you think is good. Not every NFL team's going to agree with that person. But if you're playing the odds, there's more good players on the defensive front than anywhere else, and it's a heavy need for the Eagles. So it matches up. So that's all we're doing. You're playing the odds. But if they don't like these players, they don't like these players. And if they like Malachi Starks, well, then you take them. It's like, we always, for years, and Howie proved it finally, said, well, he's not going to pay a running back. He's not going to pay an off-ball linebacker. Right up until he did. And you saw the impact. Now, in theory, are you going to get more value out of a edge rusher than a running back typically? Yes. Are you going to get more value out of a defensive tackle than an off-ball linebacker, both monetarily, length of contract, impact? Normally, yes. But there are certain players where that turns out to be no. And they're outliers. But the Eagles, the best team in Eagles history, had 2 All-Pros, 2 first-team All-Pros, had a bunch of All-Pros,
Right.
but 2 first-team All-Pros. Running back, linebacker. And most impactful player on offense, most impactful player on defense at outlier positions, which is rare.
Right. You're not always going to get those players, but it does show you that they're willing to bend what they do, if necessary or if it's called for.
Exactly. So, and I say all that to explain the process that they go through, but I don't think they're taking Malachi Starks either in the first round. But why do I think that? I'm just playing the odds.
Right.
In the building, they may be head over heels in love with that kid. You never know.
I still would have a hard time believing they would spend the first round pick on him. But again, like you said, if you don't like, if 6 edge rushers go and you don't love the 7th, yeah, that's what you do. I get it.
Remember, it's also 32. Like if you're saying it's 9, yeah, I'm with you 1,000%. It's 32. So would you take a safety at 33? Yes. Would you take anything at 33? Yes. So ultimately, what's the difference between 32 and 33?
We'll see what ends up happening there. Interesting stuff there that Malachi was in for a visit. We'll see. Skid Marks checks in on a super chat. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. He says, happy Easter, guys. J-Mac, why do you think that this draft class is so weak compared to the last 4 or 5 drafts? I'll just jump and just say COVID. I think COVID ended. I mean, everybody got the extra year of eligibility. It changed up college football a lot. That's my perspective. John, your response.
Well, just because of the personnel people I talk to, they're not enthralled by it. It's not only me. I just saw when Albert Breer was talking about Jalen Ramsey this morning, there was a clip and he was saying exactly that.
Right.
Guys, he's talking. The people in the league don't think it's a strong draft. That, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what they think. And they don't think it's a strong draft. Now, they think there's more value in that late day 1 and day 2 where you can get starters. Daniel Jeremiah used that term. He said the same thing as well. It's a starters draft. It's not a stars draft. So the top 10 people are like, shit, I'm not going to get value on my top 10 pick. And, the Eagles, if you ever want to pick 32, this is probably the year. I mean, you always want to pick 32 because you want to win the Super Bowl. But you don't expect to get impact players versus anywhere near the top 10. This year, it's a lot closer than it typically is. And this year, there's going to be more value at the end of the first round and the second round because the top of the first round is not knocking people over. That's, doesn't mean there's not going to be good players. Sure there are, but there's so much, we talk about Travis Hunter. So Rick Saratella's got him ranked number 1 overall. I think the kid's phenomenal from a talent standpoint. Where's he going to play? Rick's got him as a cornerback. DJ's got him as a wide receiver. Is he going to play both? Do people really think he's going to play both?
What do you think he's going to be? I got corner.
I think corner makes more sense, but I think more teams are looking at him as a wide receiver.
Interesting.
And it's a poor wide receiver draft compared to what we're used to, what we've gotten used to over the past couple of years. And some of the, 2 of the best players in this draft are Tyler Warren, the tight end, which typically you don't want to take that high, and Ashton Genty, the running back, which you typically don't want to take that high. So, and it's very rare you get to this late in the process and there hasn't been any trades in the first round. And I'm going to ask, Howie's having a pre-draft press conference today.
Oh, is he? What time is that?
Not official yet. Probably 1:30-ish, but who knows? Could be,
Yeah, never know with Howie. That's a big update, though, for the people who are waiting for an update. So Howie Roseman, Eagles general manager, will speak today at some point.
Yeah, it's like the president. Yeah, he might show up when he shows
up. He shows up on his time, whatever the hell he wants. Talks about whatever the heck he wants to talk about.
But yeah, I'm going to ask him about that. What if that says anything? He's not going to give anything away, but you got to go through the process and all that kind of stuff. But
hey, John, Howie's been what this season, what this offseason, as we've talked about on the show.
Yeah, it's been very honest about it.
Very honest. I think you'll get something out of him today.
Maybe we'll see. It drafts a little bit different.
Yeah, you got to play gamesmanship a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they do there. Skid Marks, appreciate your super chat. I'm going to ask Rick Saratella this question as well and get his perspective. Maybe he doesn't agree at all, but I will ask him that when he joins us. We're going to talk to Rick Saratella now at Rick Saratella, author of the NFL Draft Bible. He just sent me it, and boy, is it good. Let's get to Rick Saratella right now, joining us on Birds 365. Rick, welcome to the show, man. 9 days until the Rick Saratella Super Bowl, as I like to call it, the NFL Draft. How you doing on this Tuesday morning, brother?
You know what? I'm doing great, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on. And now it's the sprint, right? We got through the marathon the past 356 days or whatever it is. Now we're at the sprint, so we can see the finish line.
Let's pick on the Giants right away, Rick, because I always love when I see this late. Now all of a sudden, well, they're not taking Sanders. He's not going 2. He's not going 3. And then you start talking about Vegas or the Saints and what Kellen Moore is going through. And maybe those teams, Cleveland and the Giants, trade back in to get him a little bit later. But all of a sudden, the New York Giants brass is going out to do a personal sort of workout with Shedeur. Now, my take on that, and I want to get your take on it. For people that don't know, the coaches get involved very late in the process when it comes to evaluating players. Mainly it's scouts, personnel. And then the coaches come in late. So maybe Brian Daboll is kind of pushing in that direction. But more to me, this is where the owners tend to get involved, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. And if the owner steps in, which is always a bad idea, but they do it, that can impact things very greatly on the draft board. When you say something like that, when you see something like that happen so late in the process, what does Rick Saratella think?
Well, what I think, Mac, is, I was in attendance at the East-West Shrine Bowl where there was minuscule media in terms of national media, zero Giants presence in terms of beat writers. None of them were out there. So they've been bamboozled by this propaganda that I'm not buying for a second, because anyone who watched NFL games last year saw Russell Wilson is not a winning quarterback in the National Football League. So can you imagine being a general manager and going into combat with Russell Wilson as your quarterback? I don't buy it. I think this was planned all along. Joe Shane and Brian Daboll were the only GM and head coach in attendance at the East-West Shrine Bowl. They had almost nearly 30 front office personnel and executives in Dallas for the whole week, whining and dining Shedeur Sanders. I saw it with my own eyes. So all of a sudden now, they fell out of love with Shedeur Sanders. I'm not buying it, guys. The late pro day was pre-planned by his father, the whole camp. They got together. They said, we'll do a late pro day. We'll do late private workouts. They want to end this thing with a bang. I don't think this is all of a sudden, like the Giants season was over before the Yankees. So Brian Daboll's been involved in this process since December. I don't think this is all of a sudden now just coming to fruition, guys. This has been percolating for months.
That's true. The season was over pretty quickly. You're right about that. From the standpoint, and I know you're higher on Shedeur than I think most at this point.
Yeah, you got him as your top-rated quarterback, Rick.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, what this guy has gone through and the criticism, like there's been some highly criticized quarterbacks like Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow. You want to go back to Ryan Leaf. Like, I'll put Shedeur Sanders right up top with all of them. Like, this guy can do no right. He didn't get any credit for Travis Hunter participating in the pro day. Travis Hunter, if you watch the NFL Network coverage when they came on air, they said Travis Hunter won't be working out. Well, what happened? Oh, the intangibles occurred. The leadership of Shedeur Sanders occurred. He said, guys, like, yo, it's our last ride. I need you out here. Let's go. And he motivated Travis Hunter to come out and work out as a wide receiver. Like, he gets no credit for any of this. Shedeur Sanders like you saw all those receivers, Jimmy Horn, Will Shepard, LaJohntay Wester. Who do you think recruited them? Not Coach Prime. Shedeur Sanders recruited these guys to Colorado. He rebuilt 2 college programs from the ground floor up. And he gets zero credit for any of this. I just don't get it. If he's not a franchise quarterback, then my name's not Rick Saratella. Save this tape.
All right, I love it. I love people that go against the grain. Because, I just mentioned Jeffrey Lurie. One of the things Jeffrey said is you can't worry about being popular, man, when you're in the draft. You can't worry about it. And you can't worry about you see this group think it happens every year, Rick. And you get all this hate mail. I'm sure you get it. I get it. If you dare say something that isn't everybody lined up and back of you. And it happens every year, but last year, right at the top of the draft, I said Jaden Daniels. I like Jaden Daniels better than Caleb Williams. I got ripped. Some did, some didn't. But where are they 12 months later? Not that Caleb Williams. I still think he's got a chance to be a very good player, especially now that they've gotten a better offensive coach around him. And I thought that was a great quarterback draft. But one of the things I think is interesting is how many quarterbacks you have going now in that top 10. Is that a good thing? Because when I talk to personnel people, Rick, they're not in love with the top of this draft. 20 to 50, that's where a lot of them say you can make your hay and get starters. But at the top of the draft, and one thing, there's been no trades, Rick. No trades in the first round. When's the last time that happened?
Yeah, I think it's the first time since the turn of the century. I mean, and it's a supply and demand league. Like, when there's not franchise, quote unquote, quarterbacks to trade up for, you're not going to see it. But then again, like, what did 3 first-round picks to move up and go get Mac Jones a couple years ago? So, like, I mean, draft day, you could see some moving and shaking when things don't occur the way that the script is supposed to. And that's why, like, I still see 4 quarterbacks in round 1 because there's just too many teams that need one. Like, you look at Cleveland, you look at the Giants, you look at the Steelers, you look at the Saints, right? There's a lot of talk that the Rams might get a QB on the back burner to groom. Like, there's about a half a dozen teams still in the market for a quarterback. So when there's only 2 franchise quarterbacks, and then I'll throw Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe in that tier 2 category, like, you said, like, Bo Nix, nobody who had him going number 8, right? However high he went. Right. Michael Penix, right? I was one of the few that raised my hand that it was a Michael Penix believer. Hindsight's 2020, but this quarterback class has been beaten down, saying, "Oh, it's not a great quarterback." Well, yeah, it doesn't have 6 first-round quarterbacks, but I look ahead to next year. Like, the quarterback class, there's no guarantee locks. Everybody loves Arch Manning. You want to say Lenore Sellers. I mean, look at this kid Nico from Tennessee. You want that guy as the franchise quarterback? I don't think so. So, like, teams are going to have to go and identify their guy and figure out, like, the Pittsburgh Steelers, do they want to go in a war with Mason Rudolph? I think not. I mean, like, look at some of the quarterbacks hanging out. Like, Cleveland Browns going to go into week 1 with Kenny Pickett as their starter. I find that hard to believe. So I think there are going to be some moving and shaking come draft day. Right now, everybody's playing poker.
Yeah, by the way, how could people, and one of the great things about the NFL Draft Bible, I encourage everybody to get it, allaccessfootball.com. What do you have, 360 pages. So everything you need to know, make sure you go there and get it before the draft. Like, how can scouts be so sold on Arch Manning other than the surname? I love the surname. I mean, Quinn Ewers, he couldn't beat out Quinn Ewers, who is okay. I think he's going to be a long-term backup in the NFL, but yeah, he's not Andrew Luck. Right. I think everybody, wait till next year, but I see what you're saying there. Other than Arch Manning because of the name, Garrett Nussmeier because of the name. Yeah, maybe they turn into great quarterbacks, but you don't know that. You mentioned a kid from Tennessee. Boy, that's an interesting situation. Holding out in college football. We'll see if it works out for him.
Right? Yeah. And if you look back, I think, you mentioned the Arch Manning recruiting class. Like, I think every quarterback from that class has already transferred except for Arch Manning, and they got, he made $2 million as a backup in Texas last year. Kind of money they got in Austin.
No reason for him to transfer there. How do you guys evaluate that? Because I heard somebody yesterday talking about it, and they're like, college coaches have been doing this for years, going to get the bigger buck, and now all of a sudden the players do, and everybody wants to crush them. I see both sides. I'm with you, Rick, and I'm like, I don't know if I want that guy leading my franchise in the future. But in the same breath, Nico might be like, I don't know if I'm an NFL quarterback. Let me maximize my potential for earnings right now. Again, I'm not saying I like his approach. I'm just saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. They've opened up this can of worms with college football. I don't think it's going to be put back in the can either.
Yeah, I think because it's new, it rubs people the wrong way. But by the time we get to next year's draft, I think you'll have several instances. I mean, the UNLV quarterback did this in season. It wasn't as a Power 4 program or as a high-profile player. But, like, remember when Christian McCaffrey opted out of the bowl game? He got murdered for it. They killed the kid. Now it's like par for the course. Now I'm actually surprised when a high-profile prospect plays in the bowl game, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to start. And I heard a rumor the Tennessee kid might wind up with Billy Belichick down there on Tar Heel Road.
Mike Lombardi was hinting big news, so I think you might be right.
With the Nico guy, you mean? So let's see what happens there. That should be interesting.
And then all of a sudden he gets with Bill Belichick, his image, his profile, it's rehabbed, right? Like,
it is funny how it all changes too. You guys remember a couple months ago when Cam Ward left his bowl game after halftime, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm not taking him as my friend. He's going to be the number 1 overall pick." It's just a lot of the stuff is here today, gone tomorrow.
Now, and that one, Zander, I got to say that one bothered me because
it bothered me too,
teammates hanging. Like it was 28-27 at halftime. I think they lost the game by 1 point. Like, you talk about a sour note on your whole collegiate career.
I'm with you, Rick.
I like competitors. You play the first half, but you can't play the second half. Buckle up, put your big boy pants on. Let's go.
I'm with you, Rick. I'm with you on that one.
You got to evaluate it all, and that's part of it. But if you're talented, you're going to rise to the top no matter what. That to me is more about, you're going to take a hit if you're a 3rd or 4th round pick and you do something like that. But if you're a top 10 pick, it's like Jimmy Johnson always says, I'll treat you all fairly, but I'm not going to treat you all the same. Basically, if you got top 10 level talent, they're gonna take you. That's just the way it is. And that's the way it's always going to be. But we are an Eagles show. So number 32, that's where we start with the Eagles, Super Bowl champions. Adam Schefter saying, hey, Howie Roseman's going to make some trades. Thanks, Adam, by the way. It's like, come on.
Is it
We
true?
know he's
I
gonna
heard
make-
that the Eagles have the most picks as far as a single team.
Yeah, over the next 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Over the next 2 years. They have 4 5th-round picks on day 3. That's it right now. They start with 4 5th-round picks, and they're all clumped together. I think it's 161, 164, 165, 168. You probably don't want to take 4 5th-round picks. So he's going to, especially on day 3, I think he's going to move around quite a bit. But
yeah, I think that start of the round 4, right there on day 3, you always get a guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the kid, the Ringo, that guy, you always have that guy where you go to bed after day 2 and you say, "Oh, wow, that guy's still there.
Right.
Let's go up and get him."
Mhm.
That happens to a lot of NFL teams. And the Eagles went up near the top of the draft to get Kaylee Ringo a couple of years ago, top of the 4th round. But 32. Well, I look at this draft and I say there's so many edge rushers, so many defensive tackles. And that's a need for the Eagles. And I say, if you're playing the odds, wherever that pick is, if Howie trades up to 27 or 28, if he trades back to 36, 37, it's probably going to be a defensive front player. I'm just playing the odds, Rick. There's so many of them.
Yeah, I can see that. And I had a hard time with my latest mock draft because when the Eagles pick comes up, I always try to find a guy in the trenches, whether it be offensive line or defensive line. The percentages just say it's going to be one of those things. But, doing my latest mock draft scenario, I came on the Eagles on the clock, and there was yet to be a safety selected in the 1st round.
Oh,
and
so you have both of them.
Yeah, right. So, like, for me, I'm not as high on the South Carolina kid, Eamon Worry, as others are.
Game tape's not great on him, Rick. I'm with you.
Yeah, because, listen, in the open field, this guy misses a lot of tackles. He's not like a downhill in the box kind of safety. You want to play him as a freelance center fielder and try to use his athleticism there. That's fine. He's one of these guys that jumps through the gymnasium and then you go watch the film. It just doesn't translate.
I agree.
So I think that's going to be an interesting case study. I actually gave that. I saw somebody in the chat room will like this. I actually gave him Malachi Starks out of Georgia.
There we go. We were talking about it.
He'll be there, but Georgia, it's go back to the wishing well. Number 1 safety on the board.
It's worked well for the Eagles.
I find it hard to believe if Malachi Starks is on the clock that they wouldn't go in that direction. And just for whatever it's worth, Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma is my number 2 safety. And then I got the South Carolina by default, guys, because somebody's going to bet on the traits. Wouldn't be me, but somebody will.
Rick, let me ask you, how do you grade as a draft Nick, as a guy that breaks down these players really all year long? I mean, you already have your 26 prospects. I took a look at them in your draft Bible. You're sitting at 32 and you're the Eagles. Me and John were talking about this, and he just mentioned it. If you get the 7th or the 8th or the 9th best defensive lineman in the draft, just because you're picking at 32, obviously it comes down to whether the team likes the player or not. Or you have the top safety in the NFL draft who's still sitting there. How do you balance that as a team of like, do I want to take a defensive lineman because I need him, but he's the 8th best defensive lineman in this draft, let alone the NFL, or a Malachi Starks, who many believe is a day 1 starter and potentially a long-term safety? Like, how do you balance that, especially for a team like the Eagles right now, who cares about value in those 1st-round picks?
It's tough because every team has a different philosophy, a different approach. Every individual can see it differently. And I caught some of the conversation, like in regards to Ashton Genty and some of the others that are the top at their position, like the tight end, Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
Right. I have him as my number 3 guy in the draft. He's not going to go that high. Why? Because people don't view tight ends as valuable. But like, if you look at what Brock Bowers brought to the Raiders offense, different style of players, but you look at that kind of impact, I think Tyler Warren could have an even greater impact.
Wow.
So I think what happens here,
Tyler Warren is comparable to Brock?
I think he's going to be in 5 years, Tyler Warren will probably be the best tight end in the NFL. Wow. I mean, this guy, he's a baby Gronk. He's good.
He's my safest pick in the draft. I always pick the safest guy. and he's my safest guy.
Yeah, and I'll put Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State as one of the safest players too.
But yeah, I agree. He's in there. Yeah.
But to the draft philosophy, I mean, like for me personally, I believe it should be best player available because talent wins in the big leagues, right? The only exception to that rule is quarterback. Like the Giants would be the exception to the rule this year because you can't win. Like the common denominator of playoff teams is having a quality quarterback. You got to get that right first. Like the Patriots now have got it right. They can focus on building the rest of their team. Some teams take a backwards approach, build from the inside out, then go find the quarterback. That's okay too. But until you have a quarterback, you're nothing. You're a nobody in this league. So to me, that's the only exception to the rule. Otherwise, I'm taking best player available every single time. Like, why would I want the 8th best edge rusher if I can have a premium guy like Malachi Starks? Probably has some Pro Bowls in his future. Like, give me that guy, right? But because he's a safety, these guys are going to get pushed down the board because people don't value them. Same thing with linebackers, right? And so, like, that's where smart teams went out because day 2, day 3, they're plucking starters.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I think it's so important to win 20 through 50, basically. I think that's where the good teams will make their hay this year. But there's certain guys, and I rarely see this, and I'm going to throw a couple names at you. I've seen JAKIB Campbell everywhere from top 10 to 25.
Yeah.
I've seen Walter Nolan everywhere from, 14, 15 to 32 in the Eagles. Yep. I've seen James Pierce everywhere from 15 to 32 to the Eagles. You rarely see, and there's a number of other ones like that. You rarely see just the huge sort of outcome possibility. And why do you think that is this year as opposed to other years?
Well, I think the guys that you mentioned all have some character concerns kind of circling around them. As far as James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee, like I tapped into some of my contacts. I think that's more of a media mirage than actual real substance. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I think Pierce lands somewhere in the top 20. He's just too good. JAKIB Campbell, like he might have to redshirt his rookie season. I don't think he's going to be ready for the start of the season. He had that labrum shoulder surgery after the combine. Now I've got him going to the Buccaneers, I believe, at number 19. But like JAKIB Campbell, because of the medical, I think he was a medical recheck, actually. He got called back to Indianapolis. Like I could see him sliding out of the second round due to that. Walter Nolan, you hear immaturity, character concerns. I have him right now going to the Ravens just because like there's going to be a franchise that has strong leadership up top that isn't going to be scared.
Eagles would be that.
Well, yeah. And I have Nolan right now at 27 to the Ravens. So like if he falls to 27, are the Eagles in play? Very well could be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting when you see that wild swing with certain prospects, and that's another thing.
Mike Green out of Marshall is another guy, right?
Yeah.
Like he could go anywhere because of the sexual allegations that he's
well, that's a weird one because Howie was doing that interview. I don't know if you saw it, Rick, where he's talking about he doesn't even scout guys who have had issues with domestic violence now.
Which, by the way, is a flat-out blatant lie from Howie Roseman.
Well, some of that is, I think, PR.
I think it is. But
at the end of the day, like to your point earlier, if you can help us win a football game, you're going to get a look, right? But, I will say, like the sexual allegations, there are some people that are just so turned off by that they don't want nothing to do with it, right? So,
yeah, understandable. I mean, but
and we're talking about 2 incidents. Like the guy was out there at the podium, and he volunteered the information to the media. Like it must be out there because he said, "Oh well, I had some allegations at Virginia, was never charged with anything. Oh, by the way, there was some stuff in high school." The reporter said, "Well, what happened in high school?" "Oh, it was another sexual allegation, but don't worry, I wasn't charged with anything."
Trying to get ahead of it, I guess. There's 2 ways to look at it.
Yeah, right.
He is talented. I mean, I think he's just from a pure football perspective. That's the point that people like me and reporters, we can't know. There's two things we can't know. The background stuff, and that's why you do all this due diligence, and that's Big Dom's job here in Philadelphia, and the medical stuff. And those are the two biggest parts of the picture. So we're all talking. I'm just talking about Mike Green as a football player, as a pass rusher. That's it. And he's the best pass rusher in this draft, from my perspective. And he's the most advanced. He's got the most, there's a lot of speed guys, Rick, but he's way ahead of the curve when it comes to counter moves and things like that. I made the comparison. He's like an old school starting pitcher. He's got 4 or 5 pitches he can throw at you. And that's rare for a young kid. I think he's a great football player, but if he's a terrible there's no way I know that. So it's tough to
and what's even tougher is in these 15-minute date dash environments, these players now have been so media trained and coached up now. Some of the answers, a guy like Mike Green can come across as robotic, right? He's just saying all the right things for 15 minutes. He can easily dupe you. And, that's really a lot. The more I do this, the more I've learned that 50% of the evaluation is mental DNA. Can I work with the guy?
Right.
Tetara McMullen from Arizona was my number 1 wide receiver all season long. I saw the interview where he says he doesn't love the game of football. I mean, I'm not taking a first round pick on that guy. Are you kidding me?
I didn't see that interview, but nobody told him. His agent didn't tell him. Hey,
this was a campus interview a couple years ago. He was probably still a freshman or a sophomore doing one of these.
He wasn't even thinking NFL draft. He wasn't even thinking millions of dollars.
And they asked him. They said, "Oh, well, don't you watch film?" He's like, "Nah, I don't even really love football. I don't."
I did. Now that you say that, I did see it. Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't watch film. I think.
I haven't been a big fan of Tet McMullen. I'm not going to lie to you, Rick.
Well, and then you bring in the questionable speed. He's not really a polished route
runner. He reminds me of Laquan Treadwell.
Yeah,
he's a great contested catch guy, but he can't get separation. I don't want that guy.
Yeah, Laquan Treadwell is a good comparison. If you watch the UFL, he's very much like Hakeem Butler, an acrobatic.
Oh, he was here. Hakeem was here for a little bit with the Eagles. There you go. They tried to turn him into a tight end. Mm-hmm. I think the Ohio State kid is the best player, best wide receiver,
no doubt.
The draft. And I think he's going to be a good player. That's something about that school and wide receivers in recent years. But
it's a great tree to pick an apple from.
Yeah. Wide receiver Ohio State is becoming, and we'll see if that continues. Offensive line, because that's another position, as you mentioned, the trenches. Talked a little bit about Gray Zabel. What do you think? And he's a very safe pick. I agree with you. He's got 5 position versatility. I think he could play anywhere. He reminds me of Zach Martin. I'm not saying he's going to the Hall of Fame, but Zach Martin coming out much higher level. That's part, but he could play anywhere. He was a left tackle in college, and he ended up being what he was. I get those similar vibes from Gray Zabel, but the two guys that I think might be in the mix, and I want to get your thoughts on them for the Eagles, are Josh Connerly and Donovan Jackson of Ohio State. Josh Connerly of Oregon. Where do you got those guys?
Yeah, Connerly, I'm not as high on as everybody else, and maybe it's the Mike Green truck play I saw in Mobile. He just completely ran. I saw it live and in person. It's hard to get that play out of my head. It happens, though. I've seen it happen. But, he's probably more of a right tackle than a left tackle. I think he's right tackle only. I don't think he has enough.
That helps with the Eagles because they're looking for right guard. Can you start at right guard? So, is he versatile enough to play guard early and then ultimately kick out the right tackle?
He could. I think Connerly is more of a tackle only, but I think Donovan Jackson would be ideal fit because he just did it on the left side for Ohio State, right? He was at guard, then kicked out the tackle. I like him much better at guard because of the footwork. He's got some choppy foot, doesn't stride wide. He takes these short, choppy steps. When you're playing left tackle at the NFL, you might get beat a little bit more frequently, but he is going to be a stellar guard. And I'll tell you what, I mean, he's got a shot to play tackle, like especially if he goes to Stoutland University and cleans up some of the technique, he could be a tackle down the road. So like Donovan Jackson, I think fits very, very good. Yeah, I like Donovan Jackson. Josh Simmons, there's another guy with character. You hear, and I know like he had a reckless driving incident a year or two ago where, if you read the police report, he was very uncooperative, pretty much a jerk. And that's kind of what you hear from NFL scouts about the kid. So like there's a first round talent that could slide into day two.
See, all that
we were just
Trapilio doesn't get talked about out of Boston College. Now, again, he's just a right tackle only, but I mean, this guy could probably come in and compete on day one. Ozzie Trapilio.
You saw the tragic incident with Kyron Lacey, Rick. I mean, you're around colleges all the time.
Yeah,
it is a problem with reckless driving, and I mean, I don't know how you fix it, but
Trevor Etienne, Ollie Gordon, like you go through the Draft Bible background reports. I can't tell you how many guys not only have like DUIs, but they were speeding 20 miles per hour over the speed limit. And like you hear, you see Kyron Lacey, you remember Henry Ruggs, and how does that impact the guy's draft status? Like Etienne, I see people mock drafting him the day two. They probably don't know about the background and the DUI and the reckless driving and speeding at 20, 30 miles per hour over the speed limit. Like, is that a guy you really want to invest millions of dollars into? Especially at the running back position, like Ollie Gordon, he's a dime a dozen. I could go find 1 million of those guys.
Right. Yeah. No doubt. It's a tough thing. There's so much of that stuff that exists too that, I think much of the general public doesn't see or consume. But Rick, I want to ask you about a couple guys on the defensive line that I like personally. I don't know if they're going to be there at 32, but they're two players I like. They're a lot of the guys have been talked about a lot in Philly. It's James Pierce, one. I think you have him third on your edge rusher rankings, which is pretty considerable, good for him. And then I like Walter Nolan at defensive tackle. Now they're two defensive line guys. You kind of fall into the position of, maybe you're getting the 5th or the 6th best defensive lineman in the class this year versus like a Malachi if you went that route. But I love both of those players. What do you see in those two guys, and how do you think they fit with the Birds?
Well, I will say, like, our guy, Brian Baldinger, actually likes Walter Nolan more than Mason Graham. So there's some love for Walter Nolan.
I've heard a lot of love. I had Greg Cosell compare him to Jalen Carter. I'm like, whoa.
I think Carter's a little bit bigger. Nolan, I think, came in at 297 at the combine, which is a little light. And that's why, I don't know if the Eagles like that kind of fit, sub 300 pounder.
Well, I'll take it at 32. I'm not taking it top 10.
Yeah, right. Well, and I'll say he adds an element of quickness, and like this guy could jump gaps up and down the line like in the blink of an eye. So, I mean, I think Walter Nolan's going to be a high impact player. So I like him. He's my number 2 defensive tackle, and then. James Pierce Jr., I mean, you talk about doing it in the SEC, 19 and a half career sacks, I think over 100 quarterback pressures, which tells me I'd like to see him learn how to finish a little bit more. And he's gonna pick that up because he has a pass rush repertoire. He's molded like I mean, he's got the ideal frame, 6'5", 245 pounds. He ran a 4.47 40. Like, there's no ceiling on this guy, but you got to coach it out of him. Like, that's part of the equation also is like, coaching, game plan, how he's going to be implemented. You see a guy, Isaiah Simmons, I think he was the 8th overall pick. He's floating around free agency because, like, he goes to the Cardinals, there's no defined role. He comes to the Giants, they don't know how to use him. Like, he does a lot of different things very well, but he's a jack of all trades, master of none. And I think that's kind of the category you get into there.
Yeah, with a guy like Pierce, Rick, I'm a big SEC guy. Obviously, I went to Bama, so I just love watching SEC football. He's an impressive player. I mean, he produced at such a high level. My one concern, and I would ask you as a draft expert how you view this, is he dominated in college based on sheer athleticism. Like, you saw him sometimes just run around tackles to go home and get a sack. Now, that's great. In the NFL, that's not going to happen as much. You got to be a little bit more polished, a little bit more technical, have good technique, things like that, fundamentals. Does that scare you at all? Does that type of thing, if you win in college on pure athleticism, that's great. It shows you how athletic you are. but it's not necessarily translatable to the NFL in many cases. How do you view that?
Yeah, it's a good lesson to be learned here because, and I'll say in the SEC, it means more, right? But
yeah, I agree with that. For sure.
One of my biggest misses ever, a few years back, I went down to Charlotte. I spent like 2 whole days with Alex Highsmith, getting to know him and his family and his coaches. And I'll tell you what, like, I got fooled because he had no pass rush moves. It was all high motor, relentless effort, fall down, keep going, chase the ball carrier, chase the quarterback. I said, this guy, like, he's just getting by off of relentless motor and athleticism.
Yeah.
There's no pass rush repertoire here. He's a
That's
nobody.
why I like Mike Green. That's why I brought up Mike Green. He's got all these moves and counter moves.
And then look at Highsmith now. Like, he's had some seasons where he, that motor shows up. He's getting after the quarterback. He's doing double-digit sacks. Like, he's been a productive pro. So I would say it used to scare me more than it does now because I've learned from that player there. But, when you do it in the SEC and you get, 20 sacks over the last 2 or 3 years in the SEC, that means he's doing something right. And I'm not a big stat guy, but I will tell you a lot of the old-time scouts do believe in terms of pass rush, sack production, transfers over at the P4 level, P5 level, it transfers over to the NFL. I'm not telling you that's what I believe. I'm just telling you that old school scouts believe.
Right. There's a line of thinking out there that
production.
exists like that. Gotcha.
Yeah, I always say, because I hear it from guys, finishing is a trait. Some guys can't finish. And some guys can. But then, here, Derek Barnett was a hell of a pass rusher in college. It never really translated that production. Good player, but didn't live up to the billing as a first-round pick. Talking to, and from Baldy helps you out with the NFL Draft Bible. So Baldy's very close to Lane Johnson. Lane and Jordan Mailata licked their chops against speed guys. They're like, hey, come at us, man.
Yeah.
It's a counter. It's speed to power. It's the guys who can counter that are more difficult. And those are 2 of the best tackles in football. And they think it's a day off if you're just trying to run around them. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. And that's why I get enamored with people like Green, but I don't know if I don't know about the background stuff. That's the difficult part. That's the more, as you said, Rick, what'd you say? 50% mental, 50%. And I always correlated to people going on a job interview in their personal life. You're always trying to put on your best foot forward. You're always, you're not telling the truth. You're trying to tell them what you think they want to hear. No different in the NFL.
Yeah. It's these guys, they do have some investigative
well, yeah, that's where Dom comes in and you talk to the coaches and the people.
And that's why, like, when you go to the campuses, you want to get to the trainer. The trainer usually shoots you straight. You want to get to the cafeteria worker because they're going to shoot you straight, right? You want to talk to you want to go like Alex Highsmith. I went and hung out with his parents in the parking lot before the game, see who his entourage is, who his friends are. Like, you get a feel that way more so sometimes talking to a guy one-on-one, right? Like,
that's what shapes a player. That's what shapes a man, what he has going on around him. Rick, real quick, man, I want you to talk to me about tight ends a little bit. I know we talked about Tyler Warren. I've seen some people putting Colston Loveland in his category. I don't see that. I think Colston's a great player. I just don't see him in the Warren category. But I think both of those players are going to be out of the Eagles' range. When it gets to 3 to 6, do you see major value for the Eagles to look for a tight end? I saw one person, I don't know if there's any merit to it, but he mocked Mason Taylor to the Eagles at 32. I'm like, at 32, maybe in round 2 or 3, but I don't like it at 32. What do you see from tight ends 3 through 6 and any good fits for the Eagles, you think?
Well, sometimes we have too much time on our hands waiting around for this draft. I mean, I like Mason Taylor, but 32 is a little too rich for me.
Yeah, I agree.
I know he's got the strong bloodlines, and I mean, this guy ran the gauntlet drill at the combine probably better than anyone I've seen in my life, wide receivers included. Like,
he walked that line perfectly.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
But I will say, like, I love Colston Loveland. I got much love for Colston because he played the entire season injured and hurt and still did great. He reminds me of Heath Miller. Okay. Now, I don't think he's anywhere close to what Tyler Warren can do. I mean, this guy is a monster and just a whole different tier. But you're right. They're both like the Colts, the Chargers. They'll both probably look at Colston Loveland. Warren, I think, could go to the Jets right there in the top 10. Mason Taylor, but day 2 is the sweet spot. I love the tight end class. I think there's great depth. Mason Taylor is my number 3 guy. Again, 6'5", 250. He ran a 4.65 40. So in terms of size, traits, athleticism, he was underutilized at LSU. They did a lot of underneath dinks and dunks, safety valve option plays to Mason Taylor. So he wasn't really utilized there in the Tigers offense. I think he's going to be a much better pro than collegiate player. I do see second round for him. Elijah Arroyo from Miami. Again, one of the fastest guys, somewhat of a one-year wonder. He had 6 catches for his whole career coming into the season, then came out of nowhere. But this guy was a blur down in Mobile. I think someone's going to roll the dice on him in round 3. He's my number 4 tight end. Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame. This is a plug-and-play starter, solid starter, not a Pro Bowl guy. He's not going to dominate. He's not going to be this huge impact player, but he can block. He can catch. He's got multiple years of starting experience at Notre Dame. So, again, Mitchell
can run the quarterback sneak. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and I'll give you Terrence Ferguson from Oregon is a guy way under the radar, maybe round 3, round 4. Harold Fannin out of Bowling Green was one of the more disappointing players in the combine process. I'm curious to see where he goes. I'll give you one sleeper, though. Luke Lachey out of Iowa. This guy had an ACL 2 years ago. Before that, Iowa's put out some pretty good tight ends. This guy was being talked about as a first-round pick. Now, I don't know what the medical looked like, but at 6'5", 251 pounds, ran a 4.77 coming off the injury. He's probably going to slide down to day 3.
Yeah, that sounds like an Eagles move there, Rick.
Luke Lachey is a guy like Dallas Goedert. He's going to outplay a lot of the tight ends that go before him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I get a lot of Zach Ertz comparisons with Loveland, which would be, good, but you're talking more of a receiving tight end, I think, than the more well-rounded, which is Tyler Warren. So it's kind of what flavor do you want? That Harold Fannin, remember the Eagles hired Scott Loeffler, the former head coach of Bowling Green, to be their new quarterbacks coach. So if anybody knows Harold Fannin, it's going to be him. But he's so small. I think, the Eagles as a run first team. Slow. Yeah. So
combination.
I'm not sure that's a fit. Who was the guy who ran the gauntlet great last year? I think it was Coleman, right? Keon Coleman.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he did that. And so you're right about Mason Taylor. That's the guy I'd like for the Eagles, but I can't take him at 32, and he's not going to be there at 64. So you're in kind of no man's land unless you make a bunch of maneuvers. But I think tight end, I would, if I was the Eagles, I'd probably wait till day 3, right? And like we said, that round 4, there's going to be a guy there right in that sweet spot, and maybe you give up one of those 5th round picks to go get him. Arondé Gadsden is another guy out of Syracuse, NFL bloodline, started as a wide receiver. If you want a receiving option threat kind of guy, Arondé Gadsden out of Syracuse, 6 foot. What do you think of 2 guys? All right, if I'm thinking day 4, I'm going to give you 2 guys: Gunnar Helm and Thomas Fedone.
Yeah. So Helm, I mean, this guy's tough as nails. If you saw that ankle bruise that he suffered on that first 40-yard dash attempt, he went through with all the drills and the combine testing, and that toughness shows up on film. He's tough to bring down after the catch. He finds the open seam. He's not afraid to go across the middle, and he's also adequate blocker. Like, he can play in line. So I like that pick. I have him right now as who are we talking about? So many
Gunnar Helm. Gunnar Helm.
I have him at 14. I have him as a 7th round grade. It's a deep tight end class. Thomas Fedone, I have a 5th round grade, and like I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I said, "Who is this refrigerator looking boxy frame?" I mean, you look at this guy, he's a condor, 34-inch arms, 83-inch wingspan. Like, this guy is just long and boxy, And then he goes to the combine and he jumps 35.5 inches in the vert, 10'5" broad, great short shuttle times. Like, you go watch the film over there at Nebraska, he's making all these extension plays and athleticism, and you would never think that from looking at him walk off the bus. He's just a big box. He looks like a refrigerator, this guy. And then he goes out and just makes all kinds of plays. I'd say Helm's blocking, though, is a little bit more further along than Thomas Fedone is at this point, but intriguing.
Yeah, that was the only thing, because you mentioned the athleticism. He was like a big time high school prospect, Thomas Fedone. He was like, I think he was the top tight end in the country. He was like LSU, Michigan, schools like that were recruiting him, and it just never developed. But you see the Eagles, they like that trait, and they think they can develop players. So
here's one guy I'm going to throw out there. Like, when they do the rookie mini camp invites after the draft, there's a kid at the College of New Jersey, TCNJ. Not too many players.
Yeah, College of New Jersey. Like it.
Thomas Burke. Okay, I saw him at the Tropical Bowl. And I got to admit, guys, I really wasn't too familiar with this game. I had all these NFL scouts coming up to me because they know I'm from Jersey. I was so embarrassed. They're like, what's the deal with Thomas Burke? What's the 411? I said, I'm trying to find out myself. At 6'4", 250 pounds. This guy, the Tropical Bowl, these are day 3, undrafted free agent types. But he, cream rises to the top. And he was clearly a cut above everybody else. And I know I can tell you, like, there is some legit NFL interest in Thomas Burke out of TCNJ. I don't think he gets drafted, but he's a local kid. When you do these rookie mini camps, you're trying to find a diamond in the rough. That's a guy I could see the Eagles bringing in.
That's an interesting name. I'll tell you what, I appreciate all the breakdowns, Johnny Mack. I appreciate the names you brought up. If this is the plan to replace Dallas Goedert, I don't like any of them, all right? I mean, Mason Taylor or Roy or somebody a little higher up, but we'll see. Last one for me, Rick. We appreciate you doing it, brother. All the extra time you've given us today. You're one of the very best in the business at the draft, so we appreciate you joining here.
Thank you.
Skid Marks, our guy on the chat, checked in. He said, J-Mac, and I'll switch it to Rick. Why do you think that this draft class is so weak compared to the last 4 or 5 drafts? One, do you agree with that, Rick? And if you do or don't, why or why not?
Well, I think you have to understand where the question is coming from. Are you talking about up top of the draft, or are you talking about the draft as it is all encompassing? I think it's a very deep draft. I mean, you look at defensive line, edge rushers, tackles. We just talked about tight ends. Like, there's plenty of depth. So from that standpoint, there's a lot of talent. But when you talk about blue chip talent, there's very little. Like, I see Travis Hunter, I see Abdul Carter Jr., and really that's it in terms of blue chip talent. And you don't have the franchise quarterbacks that are sexy and luxurious that everybody's talking about all the time. So I think people don't see 6 first-round quarterbacks. They don't see a lot of blue-chip talent, and they say, oh, it's a weak class. Yeah, it's weak up top, but it's strong, especially in the middle and even late. So I think there's depth. I just don't think there's top-tier quality.
Right. Yeah. Still a good draft, though. Rick, great stuff, man. We appreciate you joining. Make sure you guys follow him at Rick Saratella. Go to allaccessfootball.com. I'll put that in the chat as well. Allaccessfootball.com. Put your email in and access the NFL Draft Bible. I'm looking at it on my screen right now. It's as good as it gets when it comes to breaking down the NFL draft. So, Rick, we appreciate you, brother. One of the best to do it. Thank you, man.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks a lot.
There's Rick Saratella joining us here on Birds 365. Excellent job by Rick. Johnny Mac, I love getting Rick on. Good breakdown of the draft, man. It's going to be interesting. 9 days out from this thing, Johnny Mac. A lot to talk about, a lot to speculate on, but we'll see how it shakes out 9 days from now.
Yeah, and kind of just what Rick said at the end, up top, but 20 to 50, I think that's where you're going to make your hay. And look, like I said, there's a give and take. You want to win the Super Bowl, but typically you don't want to draft at 32nd. You're behind everybody else. It just makes sense, and that's part of the penalty of being successful. This year, the penalty is not as great as it usually is because there's not really blue chip talent. Now I'm with Rick. There's 2 blue chip players in this draft. 2 blue chip players, and one of them is you got to pick a position.
Yeah,
it's Travis Hunter and it's Abdul Carter, and that's it. And that is very weak at the top. The quarterbacks are weak. Rick's a little bit higher on him than I am. Cam Ward, I think he's the fourth best quarterback if he's coming out last year. And he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. Shedeur Sanders, I've talked to a lot of people who don't even think he belongs in the first round.
Yeah.
Now, I believe
Rick had a high grade on him, man. Rick had him above.
Yeah, Rick likes Rick. I don't think anybody I've talked to likes Shedeur more than Rick. And a lot of it is which, by the way, is important. And people in Philadelphia should know this. The intangible part of it, the leadership part of it. He talked a little bit about that. People tend to overlook that. I'm just talking from a pure trait standpoint.
Right.
He doesn't have first round level physical gifts. Doesn't mean he can't turn into a great quarterback. But again, you're looking for value typically at the top of the draft. I'd still be stunned if he goes to the Giants at 3. They might trade back in to get him.
I could see that
in the first round later.
I don't know if you're the Giants though, and let's just say there's a world that they do want Shedeur, but they don't want to take him with the 3rd. You're going to have a hard time probably trading back in. I think you got a couple of teams in the top 10. I know we've talked about him slipping, but I don't think he slips past 10. I mean, I think the Saints would take him. I think even the Jets. I know people don't say they'll take it. They won't take a quarterback. I don't think what's that guy? What's the guy's name who's their head coach now? Shoot, I'm blanking on his name. Aaron Glenn. I don't think he got there and is like, okay, I'm going to hitch my wagon to Justin freaking Fields. I'm sorry, I just don't see that. So, I can see them taking a quarterback.
Well, he's a defensive guy. He might. That's part of the problem.
I don't know, man. He just came from the Lions, who had a pro-style offense. Obviously, I think he would take the shot. Now, maybe it wouldn't work out, but if you're the Giants,
I don't think the Jets are taking a quarterback. Now, again, I'm pretty confident Cleveland and the Giants aren't taking a quarterback at 2 and 3, but I think they're taking a quarterback somewhere. And it might be the second round. It might be trading back up in the first round. But I don't think they're taking a quarterback at 2 or 3 just because the value's not there. And by the way, I agree with them if that's the way it ends up. The Giants, I've talked about it, there's such a bad situation. And Mike Tannenbaum, when we were talking to Rick, he tweeted something out, and let me bring it up because Mike obviously knows the way NFL front offices work. And even certainly in New York as former Jets leader, GM with the Jets. So this is what he tweeted, X posted, whatever you call it these days, talking about Shedeur Sanders, who's holding, for those who don't know, one last private workout Thursday for a contingent of officials from the New York Giants specifically. So it's a personal workout from the Giants. So this has intrigued everybody around the league. When this happens so late in the process, and this is Mike, either there's a big disagreement in their building, which I think is the case, or their evaluation, or they're reacting to new information. What new information are you getting at this point? There's a disagreement, and that's either coach GM or owner versus coach GM.
Right.
Now, I just look at it from a logical standpoint. Brian Daboll may even like the player, but he knows he's coaching for his job. Now, Rick said, and this is where Rick and I disagree. All right, is Russell Wilson a high-level starting quarterback in the NFL any longer? No, he's not. Is he a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL? Yes.
Agreed.
Who are you going to win with this year more, Russell Wilson or Shedeur? To me, that's a no-brainer. You're going to be able to win more games with Russell Wilson. Now, it is a very legitimate argument to say, yeah, but Shedeur is going to be better down the road. I agree with that. Brian Daboll ain't going to be there for that. He's getting fired.
Yeah. The one thing I'd say about that is, like, if you draft Shedeur and you're what's the damn GM's name? I'm blanking on his
Joe
name.
Shane.
Joe Shane. It's amazing I'm blanking on his name for all the shit we've given him in Philly. But Joe Shane and Brian Dable, don't you think that should like give you a year? I'm not saying you should think about it like that, but like from their perspective, if they're strictly going off of their job security, I know it doesn't work like that. Look at Matt Eberflus. He just got fired after 1 year with Caleb Williams. I'm not saying it works like that, but I mean, how are you going to give a guy 1 year with a new quarterback and then base your entire thing on that?
It can work like that. I mean, if the owner is patient enough to deal with it but I don't think after what they've already gone through, like that's easy to do with Brian Daboll's a rookie head coach. Yeah, take the kid if you like him and you have that sort of rope. He's already been through it. A lot of people think he should have been fired already. So, it's a different circumstance. But look at our old buddy Kellen Moore. One of the reasons Kellen was hedging a little bit at the start of the process with the Saints was because he knew they didn't have the long-term answer at quarterback, and he was concerned that they would have the patience to allow him to develop a younger quarterback. And once they assured him that they would and all that kind of stuff, which they can change their mind, but you need to have that assurance at least. Then he felt more comfortable and he said, all right, let's go. I'll take the job and all that kind of stuff. But he was concerned about that as a rookie head coach. And now you see what's going on with Derek Carr and all the nonsense going down. Now, there's talk that he really wants to be traded. Not that there's not a shoulder injury, but he wants out. So, Kellen's inheriting a mess. Good luck to him. But yeah, and I think Mike hit the nail on the head, and he should, as a former GM in this league. When this happens so late in the process, either there's a big disagreement and they're building on the evaluation or they're reacting to new information.
Right.
I think it's the former. There is a big disagreement, and that disagreement is most likely between ownership and Brian Daboll and Joe Shane. And that's why if you're John Mara, you don't set it up like this, because they're coaching and GMing for their jobs. And they can't say, let's take this kid at number 3 overall and win 3 games again and keep their job.
See, I 100% agree on the setup. You're setting the entire organization up for failure by having a setup like that. But because that is the setup, and if you were the owner, wouldn't you do what you wanted to do? Like at the end of the day, even if he's wrong, even if you think John Mara's a dumbass, like you're going to be like, well, I'm going to be here a lot longer than these fucking two. I got to build an organization that's going to win in the long term.
The owner,
Shedeur Sanders. Now, I'm not saying that's right. I think the setup is wrong. I'm just saying that's why I won't rule out Shedeur, because if the owner wants him, I think he's going to get him.
If the owner wants him, they're taking him.
Yeah, they're taking him.
I mean, any owner can put that foot down.
And what's his name, by the way, can thank himself. The fucking the GM.
Well, no, I would still. In that instance, if that's what happens, yeah, I'm blaming John Mara for creating
this year. But what created this scenario this year? I mean, Shane had his 6-year-old telling him draft Jaden Daniel. I'm not saying he was going to do it or had the chance to do it, but I mean, he must have knew something was festering here. He waited till it got to this point where Daniel Jones gets paid for nothing.
His big mistake was buying into one playoff win against a historically bad defense by a quarterback who had his best game ever against that historically bad defense. And, oh, by the way, the next week they got boat raced by the Eagles. And he should have looked at that and said, oh, last week was a mirage. I'm not paying Daniel Jones what they paid Daniel Jones. But that was the bad decision.
Did Daniel Jones make it to a roster? Is he on a roster?
Yeah, Indianapolis. He might be a starter.
Right. Yeah, I could see that.
Shane Steichen. Anthony Richardson, and he will battle for it. And they gave him quite a bit of money.
Anthony Richardson is a catastrophe. He's not going to be anything in the league.
Yeah. 4th overall pick.
Yeah.
They took him because of his traits. And to date, he can't play the position. You know, there's a lot more to playing quarterback than just pure athleticism. And right now he's got poor accuracy, doesn't process well, but he's a hell of an athlete.
See, I think Shador. That's it. See, I think that's what Shador does well.
Oh yeah, he's more of a
He's more of
I
a
think people don't understand
processor of the game. I mean, I think that's what Shador doesn't jump off the page with speed or arm or athleticism or any of those things. I think he plays.
No, I think
very well.
for those who don't know, because of who his father was, and Dion was an athletic freak.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people look at him and say he's an athlete. He's not an athlete. That's the problem. He doesn't have great physical traits to play the position. Everybody wants that Anthony Richardson now, if they're picking high. The better is Caleb Williams or somebody who's got that athleticism, but also can play the position a little bit. Jaden Daniels being the best.
Yeah. Caleb Williams is always better than that, though. He wasn't, I don't think.
No. He's way ahead of that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But that's what they want at the top of the draft. And he doesn't have that.
Yeah, I mean the Richardson pick was always because I'm with Daz here. I told you I'm a big SEC guy. I love SEC football. I mean, I watched Richardson on Florida. God, it was terrible. I mean, he was awful. He was horrendous at the University of Florida.
Yeah, he's not very. If you're not accurate, you're not going to be a very good quarterback. You're just not.
I don't see it with. I never saw it with him. And it's working out kind of how I expected. But we will say a lot of good storylines in this draft. It's going to be, John, here's one thing. We've talked about this draft kind of sucks. All right. We've been pretty transparent with our great viewers.
At the top.
The one thing I like about this draft is, boy, is the element of surprise big. Because I just don't know. I don't even know who's going to be the 4th pick, let alone the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. You know what I mean? Like, I think this thing could go any direction. I could see Tyler Warren being the 5th overall pick. I could see him being the 15th overall pick. I could see this thing going so many different ways. And the element of surprise, I think, will be good for the draft.
Yeah, I talked about some of those players with Rick about who there's these wild gesticulations of where they might go. You typically don't have that. And there's a bunch of them in this draft. And yeah. That's part of the problem. It's like by this point, you usually have things. I would not want to be in the top 10 in this draft. This is not the draft to be looking for difference makers unless you happen to be a good team. You know who I think, but there's no trades in this draft. So if somehow, occasionally you see good teams like the Eagles a couple years ago getting Jalen Carter in the top 10. For whatever reason, you trade future picks and you end up in the top 10 as a really good team. That's where I think Genty could help somebody if he went to a really good team.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Saquon effect, right? I mean,
exactly.
If you go to a built team, you're going to have a much better chance. No doubt.
Exactly. But now some crappy team's going to take him.
Where are the Bears picking in the draft this year?
I'd have to look at it.
I could see them being a fit for Genty.
Yeah, they've been one of the teams that
has been mocked. He's been mocked too. Yeah, because I could see that. I mean, they just obviously reworked a lot of their offensive line. No guarantee it's going to be great, but they at least put some assets into it. They obviously have a ton of skill position players. They already have DeAndre Swift. Caleb Williams is looking at taking his next step. I think Genty would be a good fit there.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree. They're going in the right direction for the first time in a long time. And part of it is they finally addressed the offense. Not part of it, all of it. Now they did it.
Another part of it, John, is that they gave Ryan Poles a little bit of time. You have to learn. Nobody's going to come into this job for the first time and know right away what to do right away. I think Poles has gotten better each year. I really do. I know you were hard on Ryan Poles.
Wow, he made a lot of mistakes. But you're right. Yeah, I mean, so did Howie early in his career. But it's the
fucking Bears. Like, everybody makes mistakes, dude. The Bears made a lot of mistakes to set him up for a bad position.
Well, what I'll talk about Ryan Poles in a second, but the Bears are number 10 overall, and that, I think, is the floor for Genty. That's the floor. In other words, he might go higher.
Yeah, I could see
that.
But
I don't think he's going. I think that's the worst he could potentially do. and maybe the best spot for him. My problem with Poles, and it's a big one because it's just what he did to Caleb Williams last year was so fucking egregious.
With the coach, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. What just the whole setup. When you take a quarterback in the top 10, but when you even more so at number 1 overall, any top 10 quarterback, but it's just highlighted at number 1. Everything in your organization has to be aligned to make sure that you maximize that player. And the easiest thing to do is let's face it, Matt Eberflus was not knocking him dead before Caleb Williams showed up. They should have moved on. They should have hired an offensive coach, whether it was Ben Johnson or somebody else, and had him right away, had him aligned with the young quarterback. You saw it here with Doug Peterson, Carson Wentz. You saw it here with Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen and Brian Johnson with Jalen Hurts, a young quarterback. You have to have an ecosystem developed around a young quarterback, ready for a young quarterback. You don't bring in, not that he's a bad football coach and he's a good defensive coordinator, and will prove that this year in Dallas. Egregious. You can't do that. You can't do that. That is a fireable offense in my eyes. If I'm an owner.
See, is that all on Poles? I'm not saying you're wrong. I agree 100%. But, that's where I wonder if it's all on Poles, because what happens is they fired the coach, but they kept the GM around. So it's like, did the owner want something, with the coach? Was there something else that factored into the decision to keep Eberflus around for the quarterback? And Poles has done a good job at putting the organization in the right direction. They didn't have the right coach yet, but now I think they got the right coach. I really do. I think Ben Johnson's going to work out there well.
Well, we'll see. I mean, to me, and I used to argue, and it's not the same. The basketball is not the same. It's easy to rip things down. It's not easy to build things back up.
Right.
It is very easy to rip things down. Anybody can do that.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Poles had to do both. Rip down and build up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Currently, he didn't build up anything. They were one of the worst teams in football last year. Now there's a lot of promise, and there's a lot of people excited, and I'm one of them. I think finally they're going in the right direction. But to date, it's all on paper. He hasn't done a damn thing as the GM of the Chicago Bears, other than rip it down. And now he's in the midst of trying to build it up. And he's the guy who hired Meta Eberflus. Again, I say all the time. I mean, Howie, 3 years into his regime, everybody thought he was an idiot too. So patience is a big part of it.
Yeah, I agree.
And experience and learning from your mistakes is a big part of it. And maybe he learns from his mistakes, and there's a lot of positive signs. But to date, he has done nothing except hire a bad coach and potentially ruin a tremendously gifted quarterback. Now, maybe he's mentally tough enough to withstand that, but there are plenty of quarterbacks taken high in the draft who go through that misery and never recover.
Right.
And maybe Caleb Williams is different, but that's one of the knocks on him.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you're right. This is one of the issues I have too with owners, and why I kind of like Poles. I'm not saying he didn't make mistakes, but if you have a shitty organization, an organization that doesn't win, an organization that has struggled for an extended period of time, and you believe that you're going to hire a coach and a GM or whatever it is, and turn your that's where I think they mess up. They think it's going to get better too quick. Like, it's one thing, and John, you love to bash gimmicks, and you've won me over in a large part on them. But having one good year is a gimmick. Look at the Giants; they went to the playoffs the 1 year. You just said they made too many bad decisions because they bought into that's a gimmick. Establishing and changing a culture of a franchise and an organization and putting your team on the right track is not done in 1 year. It's done in 3 to 5 years. And that's what I think Poles has done a good job at the macro. of shifting things to go in the right direction so that they can have more sustained success. He hasn't been successful yet, but I do think he's done a good job at that, and I'm happy the owner gave him a little bit of time to do that. Wasn't the right coach. I agree with that.
Well, I think there's a lot of positive signs in the offseason. And a lot of it has to do with, I think people are very high on Ben Johnson. And maybe he turns in, we already know he's a great offensive coordinator, but there's plenty of great offensive or defensive coordinators that aren't great head coaches. So we got to wait and see on that. I think it's certainly a better setup for Caleb Williams. But again, there was a lot of hype going into last season for the Chicago Bears. A lot of hype because that's how well thought of Caleb Williams was as a prospect. And many around the NFL called him the best prospect at the position since Andrew Luck. Which is
big praise right there.
Exactly. I mean, he was a big-time prospect, and they lost at one point 10 consecutive games. Like, they have done nothing in the Ryan Poles era. Nothing. Even with that kind of talent. Now, can they reboot? Potentially he's learned from his mistakes, but I can't. I mean, that last year, and part of it, remember, you're still in that division. So you got to deal with Detroit. You got to deal with Minnesota. You have to deal with Green Bay. I mean, I can't envision them doing anything until they actually do it. And that 10-game losing streak last year was ugly. You remember, the Thanksgiving stuff with Eberflus, but just the body language stuff with Caleb Williams and him getting beaten up, and you couldn't have scripted a worse year for the Chicago Bears with Caleb Williams.
Maybe I'm wrong. I do think they're fixing the macro a little bit, and now it's going to be time. Now it's really going to be time. No, they got to win games. I agree with that. They haven't had success. There's no doubt about it. But I think they fixed a couple of things, and maybe now they're finally going in the right direction. But we will see what happens there. Johnny Mac, great segment with Rick. Great breakdown there of the draft. Going to be an interesting one, man. I know it's not the most exciting as compared to previous years with the Eagles, where, by the way, we've had a lot of fun during the NFL draft the last couple of years, almost to the point I think we're all a little bit spoiled. We've gotten, multiple years of multiple first-round picks, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Jalen Carter. We've had some fun on the NFL draft in previous years. I don't know if this year is going to be as fun, but it should be pretty good. We'll get to our commercial break now. When we come back, we'll put our final thoughts. I got a question about Nick Sirianni, and then we'll talk about J-Mac, who has done some draft previews as well over on Sports Illustrated. So we'll talk about those when we return. We appreciate all of you guys being here. Curtis, Abe, Brandon, Neil, Vaughn, what's up? Wilfredo, we appreciate all of you guys for being in here today. T. Will, I see you, brother. Thank Bird Gang. We appreciate all of you guys, our off-season crew. Hit that like button for us. We've been struggling on the likes. So can we get to 150? Come on, we got 400 plus in here, 450 on YouTube, 925 across all the platforms. Hit that like button, everybody. We'll be right back on Birds 365.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
Your financial future is on the line. Are you ready for what's next? At Leone & Company Wealth Management, we help young professionals, business owners, and pre-retirees navigate the complexities of building and protecting wealth. For young professionals, we'll help you grow your wealth, plan for your future, and make the most of your hard-earned dollars. For business owners, we provide strategies to protect your company, manage risks, and create a lasting legacy for both your business and personal wealth. For pre-retirees, we'll design a plan to secure your retirement, ensuring you can live comfortably and confidently in your next chapter. Whether you're just starting out, managing a thriving business, or preparing for retirement, we're here to help you take control of your financial future. The first consultation is on us. Get the advice you need without the cost. Let's make your financial vision a reality. Take the next step. Scan the QR code to schedule your free consultation today. And of course, go Birds.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a Tuesday edition. We are 9 days away from the NFL draft, moving right along here in the offseason. Just talked to Rick Saratella in hour number 1. Great to talk to our boy Rick Saratella. Make sure you guys go and follow him at Rick Saratella and download his NFL Draft Bible at allaccessfootball.com. One of the best draft Bibles, Johnny Mac. I had it open. So very good stuff from Rick. Appreciate him joining in on the show today. John, I do want to ask you about Nick Sirianni. All right. We were waiting for this contract. In fact, you had me a little nervous. I was going to Florida last week and you told me off the air. You're like, hey, Xander, that contract might come down. I might have a press conference this week. So it did not come down though. And time's a ticking. You think the Nick Sirianni contract is coming this week, Johnny Mac?
Oh, I don't. I have no idea when they're gonna. But I did, I started to think about it. I don't think they will have a press conference on it because Nick talks so much in general.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it'll just be. So I did rethink that, but no, I mean the timing. I'm just saying it's getting done. If that's the question. Yeah, he's getting a contract extension. When it happens, if it's this week, if it's next week, if it's down the road, if it's in the dead period, whatever, it's getting done. It's just a matter of when. The Eagles do not do business that way. They will not have a lame duck head coach coming off a Super Bowl. So that's just about negotiations. And obviously, sometimes they're more complicated than other times. In this instance, they're probably a little bit more complicated because he just won the Super Bowl. And he's probably asking to be, and rightfully so, the highest paid coach in the NFL. And, the Eagles are probably trying to keep him under Andy Reid at least, or whomever. And they'll wrangle back and forth and eventually agree on a number where everybody is happy. When that happens, who knows, but it's going to happen. And Jeffrey, I just said that because Jeffrey had intimated that it's coming soon. So what soon means is his definition, and who knows what that is.
We will see what happens with Nick Sirianni. Will he be the highest paid coach in football? I've had many people on the National Football Show, many different people from all different phases, former coaches, GMs. We've had a talk show host on, you name it. We've had a lot of different answers, man. Some people are like, highest paid coach in the NFL. No freaking way. But I think he's going to be the highest paid coach in the NFL. We will see. Do you think
he's going to be close to it? Like,
he deserves it, though. I'm not saying what you think. Do you think Nick is deserving of being the highest paid coach in the NFL?
Yeah, because that's the way contracts work. That's when I balk about, and I don't know who said that, but the people that say no way. I mean, again, Trey McBride's my most recent example. That's how contracts work. Nobody's saying Trey McBride is the best tight end in football, but he's the highest paid tight end in football, at least until the next tight end is up.
Yeah, a little bit more subjectivity though to coaches. No, I mean, there's no cap there. There's, you know what I mean? Like that's owner money.
The subjectivity comes into it from the standpoint of, there's no cap, so you can go as high as you want.
Right. It's not as structured though. It's not as structured.
But from the standpoint of, he just won the Super Bowl and he's been the coach for 4 years and has the, I don't know, fifth greatest winning percentage of all time. And you have to go back, and number one in the modern era of football. You got to go back to the John Madden, Vince Lombardi days to get people who have a higher winning percentage. So if you look at this century, number one, 4 consecutive playoff berths, 2 NFC championships, 1 Super Bowl. Yeah, he's got a strong fucking argument.
Yeah, he does.
And that's the way it works. And for people that don't get the way it works, I mean, in 1 week, you saw Jalen Petrie became the highest paid nickelback, and 2 days later, Kyler Gordon took his title. Because they're next. And when Cooper DeJean is next, and that's part of the problem we talked about with Cooper DeJean, but outside corner versus inside nickel. But that's the way NFL contracts and the business works. Ben Johnson, we just talked about. He tried to break and he did to a large extent. Again, none of these are confirmed, but last year, one of the reasons he didn't become a head coach was because he was asking for so much money, and everybody was trying to hold the line on first-time coaches, and now they've broken that line.
Yeah, that line's been shattered.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, he's getting paid. It's just a matter of, is he above Andy or below Andy? Maybe the Eagles can talk him into taking a little bit less than Andy because of the reputation. But I'll tell you what, if I'm Nick's agent, I'm saying, number one.
I would say the same thing if I were Nick's agent. John, if you were the owner of an NFL team, would you rather have Mike Tomlin, John Harbaugh, or Nick Sirianni?
Yeah, that's a better. Who do I think the best football coach is there? Probably John Harbaugh. And probably the Eagles think that as well. They've always been John Harbaugh. Yeah. But yeah, doesn't work that way.
You got to answer the question. You're right.
I just did. Who would I hire? John Harbaugh.
Okay. All right.
But there's I opened that whole, I saw that whole nonsense. I'm not even going down the quarterback route. By the way, I got to call out another one. Barbara. When did I ever mention the name Kenny Pickett with Arch Manning?
Barbara. You mean Barbara in our chat?
Yeah. What are you talking
about? Babs. Are you in the John McMullen crosshairs?
What are you talking about? I said Arch Manning is number one coming out. He hasn't even started at Texas. I compared him to Quinn Ewers. He didn't beat out Quinn Ewers, who I think is going to be a big backup quarterback.
Yeah.
I did not mention the name Kenny Pickett in regards to Arch Manning. Come on, guys.
Johnny Mac giving the viewers some shit. Babs, come on, Babs. You're better than that, Babs.
Come on.
Good stuff there. We appreciate. By the way, Chris AM. Shout out to Chris AM. 10 memberships gifted. Chris, thank you, bro. One of our best members here. This is a big John McMullen fan here, Chris AM. So, Chris, we appreciate you, brother. Thank you for gifting out the memberships to the people of JAKIB Nation. All right. That's much appreciated. Goes a long way in helping support the show as well. So good stuff there. John, you started to break down the draft and do draft previews on sportsillustrated.com. You're going by position group. Who was the most recent one that you did over there? Let me load it up.
Offensive tackles, which are, interesting because
as you're doing it, though, I wanted to get a little bit of more of a macro, not go, one position. But as you're doing it, any of the names jumping out at you, any things jumping out at you that are worth sharing with the people of Birds 365.
Well, they hear about it all day. It's just an extension of it, a written extension of it. But basically, to each position, break down where the Eagles are at the position currently, what the draft day bottom line is, the depth chart, the top 10 at the particular position, the guys who have the best traits at that particular position, and then the pre-draft process notes on the Eagles and who they've been connected to and who they've talked to and things like that. So you try to frame out and then use potential picks, day 1, day 2, day 3, where they might take a particular player. At certain positions like quarterback, they're not taking a quarterback on day 1 or day 2, or very unlikely on day 3. They'll probably bring in an undrafted kid. I mentioned the Bowling Green makes a lot of sense because Scott Lepler's here, right, former Bowling Green head coach. So you bring that kid in, Connor Baslick as a potential, fourth quarterback, practice squad quarterback. That makes a lot of sense. So basically I do that at every position. Just wrapped up the offense with the tackles. Best in the business, Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata. But for a number of years, the Eagles have wanted this sort of what they did at center, and constantly have that potential heir apparent. And they want that for Lane Johnson. Not that Lane is walking away, but they want that potential heir apparent for when it does happen. And so it's, even though they have the best 2 tackles, and by the way, I mentioned that yesterday when I was writing it. That is the biggest luxury in offensive football. The Eagles have the biggest luxury in offensive football, and that's that they leave their 2 tackles on an island all the time. Doesn't matter who they're playing. All the time.
That's the best set of tackles in the NFL, right? It's not close.
They rarely help them at all. And if you look at other teams, and when you're playing big-time pass rushers, you got all these guys chipping and tight ends. And look, you'll put a tight end to that side depending on personnel, but they do not help those tackles. And, yeah, nobody else has that luxury. So, and that goes back to the days of, Shane Steichen has talked about it. Brian Johnson's talked about it. Kellen Moore's talked about it. Kevin Patullo's talked about it. They do not have to help their tackles. There is no other team in the NFL that can say that. Can say they don't have to help Penei Sewell in Detroit, but occasionally they got to help Taylor Decker. There's teams with good tackles. Minnesota has good tackles when Christian Darrisaw's healthy. But they occasionally got to help them. The Eagles are like, And you see the difference when Fred Johnson played.
Right.
Then you got to help, and you can't do as much. Biggest luxury in offensive football, Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson.
That's incredible. The story of, I know we've talked about it so much because, it's just been here a while now, but the story of Jordan Mailata is still one of the craziest stories in the NFL, that you get a guy in the 7th round that nobody wanted and turn him into arguably the best left tackle in football. I think he's right there, if not the best. He's right there as the best.
But he was the best left tackle in the NFL last year, and he was only a 2nd-team All-Pro.
Who was the first-team All-Pro left tackle last year?
Boy, I don't even remember. I can tell you,
it's not Trent Williams. Who is it now?
No, he was hurt. I'd have to look it up.
Last year, was it the Lions guy?
Well, he's a right tackle. He was Penei Sewell.
No, yeah, the other Lions guy though, didn't they?
Taylor, he's not in the cover. I'm looking it up, but Jordan was the number 1 rated. Tristan Wirfs was 1st team. Jordan Mailata was 2nd team, and Wirfs is very good. But Jordan
is very good. Yep.
Mailata was the highest graded player in football, not by Pro Football Focus, any position. Number one. And I voted for him to be first team. But he ended up second team. He didn't even make the Pro Bowl, Jordan Mailata. There's a lot of shitty voters out there. But that's a different metric. Pro Bowl's not as important as All Pro, but even All Pro, I mean, I don't know. And Worse is very good, but I don't know how anybody could have voted for him over Jordan Mailata last season.
We'll see what happens next season. I think they're going to be Jordan will get his first team All Pro next year. We got a couple chats, John. We'll get to in the last 10 minutes. Abe, I'm going to get to yours. Brian, I'll get to yours. Before I read those, I missed the super chat yesterday. Okay. I apologize. Jared Hatfield, my boy Jared, commented after the show. He said, "Yo, Zay, you missed me. What happened, brother?" So I promised him in the comments I would read the super chat today. Now, I can't pull it up on the screen, obviously, because it's not here. But Jared, if you're listening, I am doing as I promised. I'm addressing your super chat now. So, John, this is what Jared says. And again, I can't put it on the screen. He says, "J-Mac, how do we feel about potentially signing Goddard to a 2-year deal that would still allow us to pay the young guys when their extensions are due?" That's Jared Hatfield on yesterday's show.
Yeah, I mean, that I've advocated. Generally, what happens is you guarantee this year and then add on the second year when this type of situation comes up, if you want to move on with the player. I've advocated that that's what the Eagles should do. They don't have an obvious answer. You just talk. You're not getting Tyler Warren in the draft. You're not getting Loveland in the draft. You heard Rick say Mason Taylor a little bit too steep at 32. You're probably not going to get him at 64. Then you start talking about Arroyo and Ferguson and then down to Mitchell Evans and Harold. I mean, those guys are not going to replace.
If
Dallas
we get the
Goedert.
Gunnar Helm, though, and Fedone, John, I mean, I'm not even happy with Arroyo, but I'd rather get somewhere in that.
Well, you
range.
do have Harrison Bryant, so you have that insurance policy.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Kylan Grenson.
But, yeah, I mean, there's two parts to every equation. And in both, the Eagles don't seem to want to do it anyway. But even if they wanted to do it, you have to get Dallas to accept it. And at his position, he probably wants a little bit more than 2 years, being this his last opportunity to potentially get a multi-year contract before he ages out from an NFL perspective. But he's a very good player. I think he had a hell of a playoff run. And I do not understand what the Eagles are doing at that position if that's an option. But maybe it's not an option.
Right.
People, for all that time, people talked about Hassan Reddick, and I tried to explain it as much as possible. Why just pay him? Just pay him. Just pay him. I'm like, he wanted a lot of money. Like $25 million level money. And if that's the case with Dallas, obviously it's a non-starter. I'm not talking about $25 million because edge rusher's a lot different position.
Right.
But if he wants top of the market money at tight end, it's not going to work. And if he wants more than this year guaranteed and a couple extra million for next year, it's not going to work from the Eagles' perspective. So that's where the loggerheads are. But yeah, from a football perspective, he's really good, and they have nobody to replace him.
Nobody. I'm wondering if is tight end the new running back / linebacker in Philly. I mean, they want to replace Lane. I think Lane was a first-team All-Pro last year. I think Lane's got 2 more years left at that level, at least, and they want to replace him. They haven't gotten anybody in the room for Dallas Goedert. And this has been years in the making. This is coming. It's not like this happened this year, and the Eagles are like, whoa, we're surprised we're in this situation with Goedert. They knew this was coming. They didn't get a replacement in the room. Do they give a shit about tight end anymore? Maybe not.
Well, they should. But, they'll make the argument, and I'm sure they have. Well, we won anyway.
Yeah, and the rest of
That,
their
but they,
offense is making
you know,
$200
that to me
million.
is a red herring from the standpoint they won basically every game without anybody and with that everybody. So you could say, well, the Eagles won 16 of 17 with, you know, they don't have many average players, but who's the most average player?
Dotson.
Yeah. All right. Jahan Dotson. Well, they won 16 of 17 games with Jahan Dotson. They won. Reed Blankenship is a guy the fan base doesn't seem to like as much as the organization. So I'll use him. You could say that about Reed Blankenship. Well, they win a lot with Reed Blankenship because they were really fucking good. And I'm not saying Reed Blankenship is one of the best safeties, just that the Eagles really like him and they're going to.
Reed is a damn good player, though. He's underrated.
He is a damn good player.
Yeah, he's a damn good player. He's earned the right to be called a damn good player, too.
I agree. But I'm just using him for that reason. They won every game last year, basically.
I know. So you can't really use that as a thing. I mean, 16 in the last 17 is an impressive run. Let's go to Abe. Abe checks in. What's up, Abe? Peter Jacobson is Howie's doppelganger. I am not familiar with Peter Jacobson.
I don't know who he's speaking of. There's a
Jacobson.
golfer. Is that a golfer?
No, he's not a golfer, but he is Howie's doppelganger. I will give you that. All right. He is an American actor, best known for his portrayal of Dr. Chris Taub on Fox medical drama series House.
Yeah, I don't watch network television any longer. If I'm watching any TV, it's Netflix, Amazon, Max, something like that. But I don't know Mr. Jacobson, but
he does.
He is.
Type in his name. He does look like Howie. I mean, he's got almost an uncanny resemblance to Howie with that. But good one, Abe. Appreciate it, brother. SVU, he says. SVU. Brian Fleming checks in. Anytime you get a Fleming chat, John, we got trouble. All right. That's typically how it goes with Brian Fleming, who I'm sure is laughing at me about to read this. Yeah, remember he's the one who called Thuney a cuck, and he says, has J-Mac been looking at the chat this whole time? And if so, do my dick jokes have a first-round grade, or am I a day 3 pick?
No, I have not been looking at it the whole. I happened to jump on. I was having some technical difficulties jumping on, and it popped up. And then for some reason, I saw Barbara talking about Kenny Pickett, and I don't even understand. It's like sometimes I think people aren't listening. Occasionally, I check into it, but not often. Which Zander probably yells at me and thinks I should. But look,
I think you do a pretty good job. Look, I mean, look, the whole show is, we do. I think we do pretty good chat interaction.
And what I talked about with Jeffrey and Howie and their philosophy. Can't run this shit if you want to be popular. You can't tell the truth if you want to be popular. I could validate everybody if I wanted to.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that.
Well, that's what people do.
It's very easy to do. But you're not educating the fan base if you do that. That doesn't mean I get shit right, but I guarantee if you listen to this show, you're more educated about the Philadelphia Eagles. That's my goal.
There's no doubt about that. Brian Pumper checks in. Howie will draft a tackle, and you fools will like it.
They should like it, Pumper.
Yeah, I'll like it, Brian. Yo, Brian, I'm not one of the people that doesn't like the trenches, man. You draft trenches, I'm a happy dude. I'm perfectly fine with that. I do not need to be enamored. We got enough. I mean, seriously, do we need another sexy pick? We have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, the best offensive line in football. You have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Do we need another sexy pick? I don't think so. I'm good with the trenches this year.
I'm old enough to remember Cam Jurgens getting picked.
Yeah, when did he get picked? 22?
51st overall.
Yeah, I remember that.
People were losing their minds. Why are you picking Cam Jurgens as center? You got the best center in the history of football.
Which he wasn't, by the way.
No, well.
I mean, I like Jason, but he was not the best center in the history of football.
No, but he was very good. Hall of Famer, deservedly so. But no, he's not the best center in the history of football.
You think he feels some type of way about the Eagles winning the Super Bowl the first year he hangs them up?
I don't think so. I heard him talk about it.
Something though, right? I mean, I'm not saying he's holding a grudge or is like upset about it, but I mean, you spent 15 years at a place, John. You get to the pinnacle one time, you know.
He said after, to his credit, after they signed Saquon, he said they were going to be really fucking good. He knew it. He's a weird cat. He's very honest, and that I say that's weird because it is weird. I don't think it bothers him at all. He loves everybody in the organization. You know, him and Lane are tremendously close. He's there all the time when he's not doing something else. He's still a big part of the organization. No, I think he was happy they won. I truly do.
Yeah, I didn't mean it to disparage him or anything. I just
because I think that most
human element, right? I mean, like, think about it.
Most people, like, that's what happened to Carson Wentz. He's like, well, I should have been me.
Yeah,
most people. I think most people default to that, and that's why I say Jason's a weird cat. He's like, he doesn't care about stuff like that. He's like he proved himself. He's, you know, like I said, he's going to the Hall of Fame. 6-time Pro Bowl player. You know, he's got one himself.
1x Super Bowl champion. Brandon Graham, 2x Super Bowl champion. Lane Johnson, 2x Super Bowl champion. Big difference, Johnny Mac.
Well, I mean,
I'm with Keith. He says what I'm thinking. You can be happy and salty at the same time. I do think he's salty as hell. You gotta be.
He's hiding it very well. I don't know. He's got 4 daughters or whatever. I mean, he probably doesn't have time to be salty, and he's got 16 jobs now. I'll tell you, if he's salty, he hides it well.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Good stuff there. We appreciate that. Pumper, Fleming, Abe, Chris AM, Skid Marks. Appreciate all you guys checking in on the super chats. Today they go a long way in helping us out. Thought Rick Saratello was awesome today. Love getting Rick Saratello on. And the one thing I like about Rick is, John, he has put his foot in the sand on Shedeur Sanders. I like that. Even if he's wrong, I like that.
I agree. I always say I like guys who think for themselves. And if Rick's right, I'll be the first one to invite him on to talk about it. I don't think he's going number 3. I'm still in that category. But yeah, he's been on that train for a while, and he's got Shedeur Sanders graded above Cam Ward, and he's had that for a while. And if he is right, he should spike the football. He should spike the football.
Yep. Last super chat here before I let you run, Johnny Mac. Seth Shipley checks in. Any chance for Gray Zabel? He's one of my favorite linemen in the draft. Yeah, Seth, if you heard
talked about him. Yeah, he's one of my safest players in the draft. He can play any position, including center. I don't think he's going to last to 32. I haven't heard, surprisingly, much talk about the Eagles and him as far as homework, and maybe that's because they don't think they're going to be in a position to get him. But the Eagles, Josh Connerly, a lot involving him. Donovan Jackson, a lot involving him. But I love the player, Gray Zabel. And I think he'd be a day one starter at right guard. And then you figure it out from there. But, you know, Donovan Jackson, I think, would be a day one starter at right guard. Josh Connerly's the interesting one because as Rick said, he's more of a tackle, natural tackle, and a right tackle. So he works as the heir apparent to Lane Johnson, but can he start inside? And there's not a lot of talk about him having that guard tackle versatility. So Donovan Jackson's probably a better fit for the Eagles, but, you know, immediately, but he's probably not going to be a tackle long term. So it's, you know, last year was the year to get that guy, and they weren't able to get him.
I'm a little worried about Cam Jurgens. I won't lie to you. So if he can play center, I think that's a nice added bonus for him.
Well, you have the luxury of Landon Dickerson. So
that's
true.
I
with all due respect to Cam Jurgens, who's a Pro Bowl center, the scary part is the best center on the Eagles is playing left guard.
You think he's a better center than Cam?
Yes, I do.
Landon's just an absolute freaking beast, man. What a perfect fit in Philadelphia. Landon Dickerson is. He really is the perfect guy. But good stuff there. Seth, thank you for the super chat, brother. We appreciate that. Johnny Mac, great show today, a Tuesday edition. Your final thoughts on this Tuesday. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on a Wednesday.
Yeah, we're gonna head down, talk to Howie today for a little bit. Nick will be there too. I don't know how many questions Nick will get, but yeah, a little pre-draft talk. So maybe get some intel. Although Howie will keep it close to the vest. But
what are you thinking? You got any questions in mind you can share with the people? What do you want to ask? What do you want to get out of Roseman?
I want to know what I want, because Howie last year said, that was when he said, I like the trade. Somebody asked him, what does he like about the draft? And, this is the first year in forever we are this close to the draft and nobody has made a trade for a first-round pick. And I want to ask him if that tells him anything about the class or what it tells him as a GM.
I like that. Good question there. We'll see what Howie has to answer to that. I do think Howie's going to be in his very close to the vest mode today. He's going to be channeling his inner Nick.
Yeah, hopefully he'll talk to us a little bit off the podium as well, but who knows? He'll probably say he's got work to do. So
we'll see what happens. Johnny Mac, great stuff today, brother. We will talk to you tomorrow on Birds 365. Thank you, brother.
All right, thanks all.
All right, there's Johnny Mac, John McMullen, the #1 Eagles beat reporter in town, one of the best in the business. Make sure you follow him at JF McMullen over on X. Good job by Johnny Mac. Howie is set to speak today. What will Howie say? We don't know. All right, good to see all you guys in here. I hope everybody is doing excellent today, okay? All right, I hope everybody's having a great day. I'm having a great morning here. Just enjoying it. Good. Thought it was a good show. Enjoyed talking to Rick Saratella. Got good engagement in the chat right now. And I do have a topic for Zander time, and it's not particularly Eagles related. It's draft. It's Shedeur Sanders. I want to talk about Shedeur a little bit, just because I want to hear. I want to hear what you guys think a little bit. Why is Howie speaking? Howie always does a pre-draft presser, Brandon. So he always does it every year. He doesn't typically give you a whole lot, but he is doing that today. That's why he's speaking. It's kind of just his pre-draft press conference that he does do every year. All right. T. Will checks in. What's up, T. Will? As Z did a playful mock that I missed. I have not done one, T. Will, but I do have to do it. Maybe I should set a date that I'll do one with you guys. And what do we want, by the way? T. Will, do we want an all Eagles mock where I pick all Eagles guys, or do you want me to do a whole first-round mock draft? Because I would be down. I'm confident that I've read enough and watched enough content and consumed enough that I could make a good first-round mock draft. All right, you want all Eagles. Okay, I could do Eagles only. Maybe I'll do Eagles only like Abe says, and I'll do a first-round mock. I'm not going to do a 7-round full mock draft, all right? But I will do a 7-round Eagle mock, and maybe I'll do a first-round mock of the whole first round. So I'll do that. That'd be good. Maybe we'll do that maybe Fridays, Zander time. Maybe next Monday, maybe. I'll start to do it today. All right. I'll start to do it today. Maybe we'll do one Friday, one Monday. Maybe we'll set it up like that. But I will do one. I promise one to JD3. I will do one. There's no doubt. All right. There's no doubt. All right. It's time. I want to talk about Shedeur Sanders. Okay. And I know he's not coming to the Eagles. I just want to talk about football. We all spend a lot of time talking about football, right? I mean, I wanted to talk about some of the other players that are not going to be in Philly, but Shedeur is a very interesting case study to me. And I'm curious to hear just general consensus. All right. Not talking about draft position. I'm not talking about where the best fit is. Your general thoughts. Do you think Shedeur Sanders will be successful in the NFL? Do you think he will be a successful quarterback, have a 4 or 5+ year career? Okay. Do you think he will be successful? What are some of your guys' responses to this? Whether Shedeur will be successful. Abe says no. Comes right out of the gate with a no. Surprising. A-Team says yes. Dank Bird Gang, it's WrestleMania week. It is. I haven't followed the last couple of weeks, but I'll tune in. Real Zeal says no, career backup. Riding the bench based on that, yes. Dank says depends on the situation. Dank's channeling his inner John McMullen. I know it depends on the situation. Dank, General, though, will he be a successful quarterback? He won't be top 15, but he will draw viewers and be a starter. He'll be competent. Chris Scott, I like that answer. I'm around 60%. If he sits, 80%. I like that answer a lot. If he sits, I'm bumping it even higher than 80. All right. He will be middling, in my opinion. I think he'll have some success, but not significantly more than Purdy. Joe Whip says mid. Park says yes with the right team. BMO says yes. If he goes to the Giants, he'll be okay. To New Orleans, he will be good. Geno is a good comp. I think he's better than Geno, but I see it riding the bench. Wilfredo says he will be fine. All right, so you guys know how I feel about Shedeur. I do like him more than most. I would rather take him than Cam Ward, not because I think Cam Ward, not because I think he's better than Cam Ward, just because if you're already taking a big risk in these top 10, if you're going to take one of these quarterbacks, I would rather take the risk of Shedeur than the risk of Cam, but that's just me. So here is something I've been thinking about with Shedeur. All right, and I do think he's going to be successful, full disclosure. My question with Shedeur is, around the player, he has this outward persona, this outward personality, okay? And I have no problem with that. Other people seem to have a problem with that, okay? I don't have a problem with that, but that's not my point here. My point with the outward persona is, what is it? Is it a show? Is it who Shedeur really is? Like, what is this outward persona? Because me and all of you people, and probably a lot of people who have never talked to Shedeur, view him in that light, and they grade him or judge him or make predictions on him based on that outward persona or based on what their perception of that persona is. My question on Shedeur is, when you pull back the layers, what's underneath? Right? I don't have an issue with the outward persona. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. I like that he's confident. I like that he has swagger. I like that he flashes his watch. None of it bothers me. It's part of athletes today. It's part of the world we live in today. None of that stuff bothers me. But what's underneath the surface, right? Like when you peel back the layers, what drives Shedeur? What does he desire in life? What kind of motivations, what kind of aspirations does he have? What gets him going? You know, those are my questions with Shedeur of, is it just an outward persona for show and for headlines and for shits and giggles and because he can be? Or is it truly who he is and he uses that to his advantage to be successful? I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know. But the one thing I will say is I think he's confident. I think he has the mentality that it requires to not only be a successful quarterback, but to turn an organization around, right? I mean, let's be real. Jalen's got a great mentality. Jalen didn't have to turn the Eagles around. He did not. Howie did a lot of that. I mean, this is a great organization, a great roster, all of these things. That's my thing with Shedeur, right? Like what is underneath the surface on Shedeur? I happen to think he's going to be successful. I happen to think he's going to be the most successful quarterback in this draft. I happen to, if I was a GM, which I'll never be, if I was an owner, which I'll most likely never be, maybe one day I'll get that big and we'll buy a sports team. That would be pretty insane. One of my earliest aspirations in life when I started to have a developed mind was, man, I'd love to get successful and own a sports team. I would take Shedeur. I would take him over Cam Ward. I would take him over Dart and Milroe and all those other dudes. If I'm taking the gamble, which let's be real, any of the top 10 picks with using on a quarterback is a gamble. I'm gambling on Shedeur. I don't care where it is. That's my take on him, but I'm very interested to see how it pans out. And for those who do know what's underneath the layer, you know, I see riding the bench. I agree 100%. You know, in terms of the outward persona, this is what Riding the Bench Eagles podcast says. I think it's authentic. He's prime time's kid, doesn't get in trouble, has NIL money, and now we're seeing him handle NFL media criticism. I think people have overblown his confidence as arrogance. I think that's a great take, Riding the Bench. In fact, that is literally my take. I mean, I'm giving you credit because you put it in here, but that's exactly how I see it. Literally exactly how I see it. All right. And that was kind of my take on like the outward persona, right? Is it authentic? Is it who Shedeur is? You know, obviously there's more depth to the person, but is that who he is? Or is that the persona he puts on because he feels like he has to put that on because he's Prime's kid, right? I don't know, you know, but I think what you said there is my take on it as well. He doesn't get in trouble, bunch of money. Again, you might not like it. You might not like him showing his watch, you might not like it. That's the nature of athletes today. I mean, you know, that's what it's gonna be. So don't hate the player, hate the game. I mean, shit. And his Prime is also his father. He's gonna have that persona. But good take there, riding the bench. Appreciate that. All right. Appreciate that. Let's get to my boy, Chris AM. Look at this, bro. I can't believe you, Chris. Holy shit. $100 super chat, man. $100 super chat. He gifted 10 members a little bit ago. This was after last week he gifted 20 members. Chris, thank you so much, man. It goes a long way, and that means a lot, bro. Means a lot. Chris AM says, for the real ones, Holy Week, y'all stay up. Be blessed. Fly high, fam. Zander, Palm Sunday was beautiful yesterday, as it always is every year. Love supporting because I know this in turn blesses everyone else on here. Love you all. Jesus Christ loves you so much more infinitely. Go Birds. Great comment, Chris AM. Great comment, bro. Palm Sunday was beautiful. So what, Chris, Palm Sunday is one of my favorite masses of the year. I just think the reverence around it. I think there's a lot of beauty. I think it's a little bit, you know, it's celebratory, but not in an overt way, more in a preparation for celebration for what Jesus did for us way. Beautiful comment. Chris, I told you last week, I don't know if you were here, I was going to make my palm cross. My sister made it this year. Our palm was a little stale this year. You can kind of feel it. It's a little stale. So I was a little upset about that, but check out the palm cross, man. Looks good. Looks good. So I'm going to put this in the truck. I always make one of these every year. This year, my sister made it for me, so thanks to her. But it was a beautiful mass, and I'm happy you enjoyed it as well. This is the problem. Curtis called it out. I cursed at the super chat. And you're right. I'm not supposed to be cursing on Holy Week, Curtis. And Chris AM is the one who doesn't want me to curse. And I said, holy yes. I got to stop. All right. It's a habit. I got to break it. I got to break the habit. But Chris, thank you, bro. It really means a lot to me, the support. Thanks, bro. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart. Thank you. And God bless you. God bless you. Bald Eagle checks in. Bronny Sanders never faced adversity. Good luck. What a stupid take. I'm sorry. Bald Eagle, I respect you. I appreciate you being here. Those takes to me are the worst takes. What led you to make that comment? Truly. Or is that just I'm a jealous human who looks at other people and is intimidated by their persona or their personality or how they approach life? Like, what? Just like I said, let's peel back the layer on Shedeur. Let's peel back the layer on your comment. Where did this come from? Never faced adversity. Good luck. Bronny Sanders. Stupid comment all around. Bald Eagle, sorry, bro. I just think that's a stupid comment. I really do. I think that's a stupid freaking comment. All right? I think it's a stupid comment. I'm sorry, man. I mean, come on. Bronny Sanders. Bronny Sanders. I mean, come on, man. Come on. To me, it's about winning games. Sanders didn't win in college. Hey, Real Zeal, I'm not sure if you're a college football fan or not. I don't want to speak for you. But let me remind you, he went to Colorado. Excuse me. He went to Colorado. He didn't go to Alabama. He didn't go to Georgia. He didn't go to an SEC school. He didn't go to Tennessee where Nico was going. He went to Colorado. They didn't have players there. It's not, by the way, it's not all about winning games, especially in college. It's not. Look at Josh Allen. Look at Lamar Jackson. Come on, man. Lamar won a Heisman at Louisville. Like, winning does matter. But to sit here and judge what a player is going to be based on how many games he won in college is not a full way to look at him as a prospect. Not in my opinion. But I appreciate your comment. Zay, not saying you're wrong about him. I just don't know how anyone can feel strongly with him playing in Colorado. I have no idea what to expect from him. That's fair. That's fair. People said the same about Quinyon Mitchell. People will say the same about Mike Green. People will say the same about anybody who didn't go to a Power 5 school, Curtis. That's going to live with people. Some players will overcome it. Some will not. That's the nature of the beast. I happen to think Shedeur is cut out to overcome it. If you don't, that's fine. Kyle Kokorski, check out Tankathon. They've been accurate the last 4 years. What is Tankathon? Are you talking about for the NBA or for the NFL? All right, they have Shedeur going 9 to the Saints. I like that. Who do they got for the Birds? James Pierce. I love that. He's probably the guy I want the most, not going to lie. James Pierce Jr. James Pierce Jr. God bless you too, Xander. Everyone else here, much love. Chris, thank you, bro. Love you, man. I appreciate you. Abe says, Xander, but is Shedeur's career have any similarity to what Jalen has had? Jalen also had a father who coached him his entire career up until college. That's where Jalen excelled in college. Abe, not the same at all. Not the same at all. Wait, let me ask you, Abe. Jalen's father was his coach. Correct. Up until college. Correct. Was Jalen's father an NFL Hall of Famer? Was Jalen's father one of the best athletes, ever? I mean, come on. Shedeur was not Shedeur. Dion was one of the best athletes. All right. Dion is an NFL Hall of Famer. I mean, I don't really think there's many similarities there, but I understand where you're coming from. I'm not reading too much in it. We're giving all the picks for Abdul. What do you mean, Zay? Hey, Eduardo, I wouldn't complain too much. All right. I wouldn't complain too much. All right. Jalen won in college. Oh, God, Zeal. Zeal, you just proved my freaking point, brother. You proved my point, Zeal. Jalen won in college. And listen, I'm a Jalen Hurts fan. I got a number 2 Jalen Hurts Eagles jersey. All right. I bought it when he was drafted. I'm a Jalen guy. I like Jalen. In fact, Curtis tells me all the time I put way too much stock in him winning a Super Bowl, and I have him way too highly graded in the NFL because I have him 2 or 3, somewhere up in there. All right. Jalen threw the ball 10 times a game in Alabama. I went to his first ever game in college, Real Zeal. He won 52-6 over USC. He wasn't even supposed to start the game. It was supposed to be Blake Barnett. All right. Jalen won in college because he was at 2 excellent programs. For you to say that Shedeur didn't win playing at Colorado and then say Jalen won. Wait, Zeal, I must have gone to sleep. Is Oklahoma now not a good college program? Zeal, what are you getting at? Is Oklahoma now not a good college program? Were they not a highly ranked program when Lincoln Riley was leading Oklahoma? Zeal, get your head out of your ass. Be real with me. If you want to have a good conversation, I'll have it. But to sit here and say Oklahoma? Oh, Jalen Hurts turned around Oklahoma. Come on, man. Actually, they aren't. Yeah, they are. And especially when Jalen Hurts was there and Lincoln Riley was the coach. Lincoln Riley was the coach. He got paid a king's ransom to go to USC. He had one of the best programs in college football. Come on, Zeal. To compare Oklahoma to Colorado is stupid. It's stupid. It's flat out stupid. I'm not trying to pick on you. It's stupid. They're not comparable. They're not comparable. Certainly not when Jalen was there with Lincoln Riley. Not even in the slightest. Because he had guys like Jalen Hurts. He also had guys like CeeDee Lamb. He had a bunch of dudes there. Yeah, and then BMO, here's the problem with this. And the reason I've left this out is because people more use this as a knock on him than an accolade, BMO. People say, well, he won at Jackson State. Who the hell cares? It's an HBCC. Nobody win. There's no competition there. That's why I don't bring it up. It's not that I don't factor it in. I just can't get over Zeal acting like freaking Oklahoma was a bad program. I mean, come on, man. Let me look up some data here. Let me look up some data. Okay? Let me look up some data. All right, so 2019 is when he played at Oklahoma. They finished seventh in the final AP poll. Okay, let's look up 2018 now, when Jalen Hurts transferred to Oklahoma. Again, they were 8-1. Okay. Oh, they were. Oh yeah, they lost in the playoff in the Orange Bowl to Alabama. Interesting. Yeah, CeeDee Lamb and 109 yards in that game. Kyler Murray. Oh, that's right. They had Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray before that. Like, Zeal, holy crap. I'm going to try and not curse, but do you see how stupid that comment was? They had 3 straight quarterbacks get drafted, 1 overall, or 2. Baker and Kyler. Am I missing one? They went to the playoff with Jalen. Okay, good. So we added 1 win. But you're right. You're right. It's the same as Colorado. Oklahoma is the same as Colorado. They had back-to-back quarterbacks go number 1 overall, Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield. And this dude's trying to tell me that Colorado is comparable to Oklahoma, especially back in 18 and 19? All right, again, I'm going to move on because that comment is just so stupid. It's just so stupid. It doesn't even make freaking sense, Zeal. And you're smart enough to know that. You're just being that guy. You just want to stir the pot. I know how you are. You like to stir the pot every once in a while. I see your tweets. You do it all the time. That's fine, but just acknowledge that's what you're doing because that's a pretty stupid fucking comp. Let me get off this. All right, did I miss any chats? Here we go. Kyle Kokorski, what's up, Kyle? I already got that. Check out Tankathon. They've been accurate the last 4 years. Well, they got us taking James Pierce. I'd be very happy with that. Fly Eagles Fly. Chris is awesome. I want to thank him too. Me too, man. Chris AM, thank you, bro. Fly Eagles Fly. Thank you. Brian Fleming checks in again. What's up, Brian? I'm going to say Chris AM might actually be Jesus. Chris might be short for Christ. He's here in the morning, hence the AM. Are you from Nazareth? I'm not going to say that because nobody's Jesus Christ, but I hear you. I appreciate it, Fleming. Appreciate it, bro. Bald Eagle checks in. That's not it at all. Shedeur followed his dad to Jackson State. He never worried about losing his job ever. Has nothing to do with the affluence. Okay, Bald Eagle. I'm gonna clue you in on something. If your dad was a college football coach, okay, and you had and he was a Hall of Famer, okay, and he was the coach of a program, and you were his son, would you not go play for him? Am I missing something? Would you have rather Shedeur not played with his dad? I don't know about that. I'm not holding that against him at all. Sorry. I'm not holding that against him at all. That he went with his dad, so he didn't have any adversity. Are you telling me there was a quarterback on Jackson State's roster that should have been there over Shedeur? Are you telling me that Colorado had a quarterback that would have played over Shedeur Sanders if it wasn't for him being his dad's son? Come on, man. Now I see why Rick Saratella was so emotive about Shedeur Sanders. I mean, some of these comments are absolutely insane. If you want to talk to me and you say, I don't know if he's got the talent to compete in the pro. All right, we're bringing up that he played college ball with his dad, so it's a knock on him. That he played at Colorado, didn't win enough at Colorado? Man. Sorry, but not good takes for the people against Shedeur today. I'm sorry. Not one of you have convinced me this way at all. In fact, you've pushed me further my way because now I'm looking at, boy, the biggest knocks are a bunch of BS. Didn't win at Colorado. It was laughable. Colorado Boulder. Yeah, that's a football beacon. Hey, you're going to be a great player in the league one day. Come on over to Colorado. This is the school for you, not Oklahoma or Alabama. Zeal, you might want to take a lap. Bald Eagle, you might want to join him on the lap. How's it going to fly when Shedeur blames his O-line for his shortcomings again? M. Reyes, did you watch college football last year? Again, I don't love excuses either, but did you watch that offensive line? Did you watch that offensive line? That was a bad offensive line. And listen, bro, M. Reyes, where I agree with you is I'm not an excuses guy either. But, like, bro, what's one of the biggest reasons that Jalen Hurts has been so successful with the Eagles? And I don't say this to take away from Jalen at all, but let's be real. What's one of the biggest reasons Jalen Hurts has had such unprecedented success in his 4 years of being a starter? What's one of the biggest reasons? The number one offensive line in football. So if you're not going to say, oh, Jalen was only good. No, it's not his legs. Well, it is his legs too, but I'm talking about the O-line here. How am I going to take away from Shedeur because he didn't have an O-line? An O-line is the one thing in football that you need. If you don't have an offensive line, you will not be successful. You will not. You will not. Now, Joe Burrow maybe is an example of a shitty O-line and took them all the way to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is a rarefied air. I mean, when it comes to talent at the quarterback position, again, talent's not everything, but he obviously has unprecedented levels of talent. Maybe, M. Reyes, the most merit thing about what you said here is, is that excuse mentality going to be a thing, right? You can't have that. It's one thing to not be good because your O-line's not good. It's another thing to say, use that excuse and kind of fall in that sort. I do agree. I'm not a fan of that type of person. All right. Zander, would you consider then that Cam Ward had a great O-line? Yeah, I mean, his O-line was much better in Miami. Wasn't like the greatest O-line in football, but it was a solid O-line for sure. Definitely a lot better than Shedeur Sanders had. I mean, but, look, I brought up Shedeur Sanders on Zander Time today. And these are some of the biggest pushbacks I've got on him being successful. He didn't win enough at Colorado. Let's look up what the record was last year. They were 9-4 last year in the Big 12. All right. Not really bad, if you ask me, for Colorado. All right. The year before that, they were 4-8. They were 1-11 the year before. Wait. Oh, my gosh. This is actually comical. Where is Zeal? Zeal, I hope you might. Honestly, I hope you left because this is insane. He says he didn't win enough at Colorado. You ready? Who's ready for this? 2017, they were 5-7. 2018, they were 5-7. 2019, they were 5-7. 2020, they were 4-2. I guess that was the year they didn't play much or whatever. 2021, they were 4-8. 2022, they were 1-11. 2023, first year with Dion, they were 4-8. 2024, they were 9-4. Zeal, you got to be effing kidding me. They went 3 straight years at 5-7. Then they were 4-8. Then they were 1-11 in 2022. Bald Eagle checks in. I'm not trying to twist your words at all, Bald Eagle. So I'm happy you're here to clarify it. I'm not. My intention is absolutely not to twist your words. You have to acknowledge that I'm only reading comments, so I can't get your full perspective in a comment. All right, so I'm just gonna make comment. I mean, I have to do a show. I'm gonna make commentary, but I appreciate you clarifying. He said this dude is twisting my words. You can't credit Jalen for losing his job and overcoming that, and then not acknowledge that Shedeur never went through anything close to that. Well, I agree, but he was never in that position, Bald Eagle. All right. I don't think the two work together. Like, I'm not saying Jalen should be taking away that credit, but I don't necessarily think that situation applies to Shedeur. Right? Like, I don't think it's a knock on Shedeur. I think it is credit for Jalen. I don't think it's a knock on Shedeur, though. I think they're separate. I mean, because he played for his dad, you're going to use that as a knock on him? Like, Why? I don't. What am I missing here? He played for his dad, so he never had to go through that adversity. Okay, been a ton of college quarterbacks who never had to go through that type of adversity. Jalen's adversity was not universal. Look, I'm not trying to twist your words. I'm still not really following what you're going for. So Shedeur is not going to be good because he never had that adversity? Is that the take or what? I don't know. I need more clarification because I'm still a little lost. All right. Still a little lost on that. Yeah. Burrow was sacked 9 times in that bowl. That's right, Brian. That's why they lost that Super Bowl. In fact, Matthew Stafford wouldn't have a ring right now if they had a semi-competent offensive line because Joe Burrow was so good in that season. It was insane. All right. But anyway, good stuff. Good stuff. I do think Shedeur is going to be good. I'm happy we had the conversation. I know it's not Eagles related. I know everybody wants to talk Eagles all the time, but I did want to talk about that. So I appreciate Zeal. I appreciate Bald Eagle. I appreciate everybody's takes. I don't agree with all of them. In fact, I'm maybe more sure that Shedeur is going to be good because I posed this open-ended thing of like, why do you think Shedeur is not going to be good? And it was didn't win enough of Colorado, largely baloney. Didn't face adversity because he played with his dad. Like I think anybody who likes their father would probably want to play with their father. I mean, I don't know. I would. Life is big. I could have chosen to do anything in life. All right. When I left college, I had my own business as being an entrepreneur. All right. I left that business. Said, hey, Dad, I'm going to team up with you. Let's do this media stuff together. All right. Let's get on YouTube. Let's do some of these things together. I willingly chose to go work with my father. There are people who use that against me. I don't care. Okay. I don't think that says anything about me. Other people think it does. I don't think it does. So I get it. I get it. But point being that, I don't really see any of the takeaways from Shedeur as being worthwhile. I really don't. Again, if you guys told me I just don't think the skill set is there, I'd say, all right, maybe that's true. But I'm just not buying because he didn't face adversity because he played with his dad. Like, I'm not buying that BS. I'm certainly not buying the BS of winning in college. Again, my questions on him are more like that outward persona. What is it? I don't have a problem with it at all. I actually like it. I really do. I like it. I think this is a man's game, and you better have a swagger and a mentality and a confidence about you that's unshakable. And if you don't, this league is probably going to chew you up, spit you out, step on you, and throw you in the garbage. So I like it, but what is it, right? That's my question on Shedeur, and I think it's real. So we'll see what happens with it. I do not think he's Bronny Part 2, and I actually kind of like Bronny. Not going to lie. I think, I laugh at people, who get mad at LeBron. And I am not a big LeBron fan. You guys know that, all right? I'm a Jordan is the GOAT guy. I'm not the biggest LeBron guy in the world, but I mean, do people want LeBron to not put his son in the league? I mean, come on. Come on, man. Arch Manning is the #1 pick in the draft. He's barely played a game at Texas because his name is Manning. LeBron does it, and everybody's got a problem with it. It's like, all right, everybody take a deep breath. I know there's a lot of jealous people in the world is my take. All right, a lot of jealous people in the world. Yeah, I remember that game. I watched that game, Brian. He says first game in Colorado, he beat the ranked TCU team 45-42 with no O-lines. True. All right. Abe says, Xander, I think people just can't cope with the arrogance of a QB like Shedeur, but how can you blame him? The dude's father's a Hall of Famer. He's been trained with that mindset. Abe, I'll go further. People that are shriveled up by that mentality and that mindset have problems of their own that they're not facing. And I don't want to speak for people, but why does the mentality of another player make you shrivel up? Like, what do you mean you can't cope with a guy? Shedeur Sanders has a certain personality, and I'm supposed to cry wolf about it? Like, I'm sorry, Abe, I've never loved that mentality. I think it's a prima donna approach. I think it's a holier than thou approach, and it's not me. All right. So I hear what you're saying. I know you're not saying it's me. I think you're saying people, but I just have a hard time getting on board with that. Oh, the dude is a big personality, so I think he's going to stink. Okay, well, your opinion stinks then. That is not why Shedeur Sanders will fail or not fail at all. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons he could be successful is because he looks at himself and thinks, I'm great and I can do this. And you got to have that. Jalen has that in a reserved way. Look at him. Oh, so this is what y'all wanted to see. Jalen has that. That is what Jalen is in a more reserved manner. I mean, think about it. Why do I care about the opinions of sheep? These are comments from Jalen Hurts. You all love Jalen Hurts, right? So it's only arrogant because you don't like the guy or you don't like the circumstance or you don't like his dad or you don't like that you think he was given everything. It's all self-projection, that stuff. All right? Analyze the guy for what he is. What is the player? What can he do on the field? What is the mentality? What drives the guy? And what's going to make him succeed or not succeed? I'm not concerned or care about your preconceived notions of what you believe is a good mentality for a player to have. All right? Yeah, I agree with Curtis. He says Jalen's super arrogant. Doesn't bother me. He's still a leader. He is arrogant. He's absolutely arrogant. And that's a good thing. My point. You got to be. This is the best of the best in football and sports in the NFL. If you think you're going to walk in there and say, hey, be a softie and succeed, you're not. You're going to get chewed up. You're going to get spit out. You're going to get stepped on, and you're going to be discarded. Shedeur certainly won't let that happen. If he fails, it will be because he's not good enough to play in the league. It will not be because his dad was Dion or because he flashes his watch to the camera or because he didn't win enough at Colorado, 1-11 in 2021. Good night. Or 2022, excuse me. All right. Love you all. Great show today. Great show today. All right. I want to thank Chris AM again. Chris, thank you, big dog. I appreciate you, brother. I really do, man. All right. I'm happy you enjoyed your Palm Sunday. I enjoyed my Palm Sunday as well. It's always been, Chris, I told you, it's always been one of my favorite masses of the year, but big one coming up, Easter, obviously, on Sunday. I'm trying to not curse on Holy Week, but, man, I got a bad habit of cursing. Holy mackerel. I can curse, can't I? I mean, you get me going a little bit, and I'm dropping F-bombs. I'm cursing left and right. I got to stop that. I got to try and stop the cursing. But I am trying. It is Holy Week, so it's a big week for anybody that believes in Jesus Christ, and you all should believe in Jesus Christ, but I won't tell you how to think or how to preach or who to pray to or any of those things. I got love for each and every one of you. All right? I got love for each and every one of you. BMO, Trey, what's up, Trey? Yeah, I saw that, Trey. We don't want Jalen Ramsey. Trust me on that. Devin, A-Team, Fleming. All right. BMO, James Jones. What's up, James? Hope you're doing good, brother. Gonna be interesting to see what you guys do in the draft, James. Gonna be interesting to see what you guys do in the draft, brother. I'm curious to see about that. All right. Curious to see about that. Confidence versus arrogance. I agree, Cheryl. How do you decipher that? Right. By the way, I'm not one of the people that thinks all arrogance is a bad thing. I don't think all arrogance is a good thing, but a little bit of arrogance is necessary in life. And Shedeur is a perfect example of it because look around. Everybody's going to throw stones. Everybody's going to cast their projections on you. Everybody's going to make proclamations about what you can be and what you will not be. That's life. Even in a smaller level, people will do that to you. Maybe not at this level again, right? This public, but it will happen in your life. You're either going to be confident and have a little bit of arrogance that will allow you to get through some of that, or you'll shrink like a violet. You don't want that, all right? So I've never even viewed it as confidence versus arrogance. While I do understand what you're saying, I don't think either of them are a bad thing. Obviously, you have to temper them. You can't be arrogant, to the point where it is bad for you. But having a little bit of that doesn't bother me at all. It never has. Look, I view myself as a very confident person. I've always been confident. I've never doubted doubted myself. Like, I've never been that type of dude. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn. I'm just saying that's always been me, right? My parents have always said, you're a confident guy. My friends have always said, you're confident. My girlfriend always said, well, you're so confident. I'm confident, all right? I'm me. I'm unapologetically me. And I like that about me. I think that's a good thing to have for success. You have to temper it, obviously. You can't be, an asshole to people. You can't look at people like they're dirt on the bottom of your shoe. I think you got to treat people equally. You got to have a good mentality on life. But I certainly don't view arrogance or anything like that as a bad thing. I think this is actually the right thing. If you're arrogant and ignorant, I think that's where you get a problem. All right. I think that's where you have a problem. And I agree with that, Dankberg gang. If you're arrogant and ignorant, I think that's when you start to treat people like lesser than. You start to, look down on people. You start to have that holier than thou mentality. Okay. So I agree with that. I do agree with that. I agree with this too. Arrogance sucks, but confidence can be confused as arrogance. Not all arrogance sucks, Jason. I promise you on that. All right. Not all arrogance sucks, but we'll see what happens. All right. Appreciate all of you guys. Chris, I am once again. Thank you. Thanks to every one of you. All right. We have a great community here. It's been great to talk to you guys all through the offseason right now. 9 days away from the draft, man. 9 days away from the draft. All right. And it's getting closer. A lot of stuff happening. So we'll keep you all posted. We'll be live again 2 to 6 p.m. on the National Football Show. All right. A lot of great comments coming in that I want to address, but I got to get out of here. All right. Real quick, though. You got to be coachable even when you're arrogant. Exactly. Great comment, Curtis. Being teachable is one of the very important things in life. And then this guy says arrogant equals confidence plus ignorance. To a certain extent, I agree with that as well. All right, so you got to be able to balance it. All right, it's all about the balance. But I'm high on Shadura. I'll tell you guys that. All right, appreciate all you guys, and we'll see you next time on Birds 365. Love all you guys.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.